Hello and welcome to the Select Board meeting for Wednesday, September 16th. We have just come out of executive session that we started at 5 o'clock. We are now going into open session. We are going to take a few minutes. We do have an appointment at 6, but we're going to open it to citizens participation first. So Jen, if you'd be ready to unmute, if anyone has anything they'd like to comment or talk to us about before we go into our appointments, now is your time. Diane Ring. You can unmute yourself, or Jennifer. Great, go ahead, Diane.
Hi, thank you. Good thing you rescued me. I couldn't find the raise your hand official button. So thank you. So I'm just looking at the agenda and I see that there's going to be a presentation on 10 to 50 Main Street. Correct. And so not knowing what this project is about, it just occurred to me that I don't know where we're at with our housing needs, whether they've been met. I know the affordable housing numbers aren't there yet. And I wondered if there's any way that Michael or somebody could just tell me where we are as opposed to the projected need. Thank you.
Sure, Michael, I think if you can just give her where we are with our affordable housing percentage number, that might help.
And other housing, please.
Yeah.
Well,
there's no requirement for other housing, Diane. The only number that we have to meet is our affordable housing number.
So I believe we're at 6% right now. Okay. And we do have what's called an affordable housing plan, production plan in place. We're going to be in the process of revising that over the next few months.
Thanks, Michael.
Welcome.
Okay. Anything else, Diane?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I see Margie has raised her hand. Margie, go ahead, unmute yourself. And
hi, I just finished reading the last housing production plan, and it said that that property is a hazardous site. So could you give me an update on that, please?
Which property is a hazardous site?
I'm sorry, 10 to 50 Main Street.
That may be addressed in the presentation. So
okay.
I think we'll hold off on talking about the hazardous.
Okay, thank you.
Nature. Okay, anyone else for citizens participation? Mark?
Thank you. Good evening, Mark Sony. I just want to, through the chairman, I want to ask the town manager, is there any news about the federal government for the Recovery Act? The federal government's going to be passing through, or has done so, the Recovery Act from the COVID. Anything on that? That's all.
Unfortunately, no, Mark. I've not heard anything solid at all.
No decision there yet. Okay. Seeing nothing else for citizens participation that I can see, either via pictures or on the chat screen. Our first appointment is a presentation of 10 to 50 Main Street, the project there. I'm going to let Peter Matchik start us off with this. I know we have a number of guests related to that project, but Peter, if you could start us off, that'd be great. We need to oh, there we go.
To unmute myself. Thank you so much, Chair Greaves. So first I want to just point out that over the last couple of months, Mr. Rich Gordon, who is the owner of the property, has come to the planning office, I would say, to start talking about a planning process called a 40R. And a 40R is a legislative adopted, Massachusetts, the State House adopted a legislation known as 40R, which is a fairly long and complex and spelled out zoning process, which is fairly project specific, project based. 10 to 50 Main Street, as everyone knows, is a very, it's for some, it's a complicated building and structures. However, I think pulling back and looking at the history of the town of Ashland, 10 to 50 Main Street has been a keystone in the development of the downtown. And it also has played a major role economically, and it still does so today. However, thinking about all the changes, I think for the downtown that is in the pipeline, with the putting all the power lines underground and redeveloping the sidewalks and really kind of creating a place of entrance for the community and as a placemaking tool. I think this project that Rich will present tonight is a major opportunity for the town of Ashland, in which his team will present, I would say, in that development of the downtown. I think the large capital investment that the town is going to make along with the state has led to these conversations that Rich and I have had. And so the 40R process, to get back to what the legislative matter is, has been taken up in many other towns across the state, and in many cases for the redevelopment of very similar industrial age buildings that 1050 Main Street is, and made them and have them redeveloped into housing and economic areas of economic opportunity, I would say. So I think traveling the state, going to planning conferences, the 40R process has been used in many other communities, and it's been used successfully in many other communities. And hopefully tonight, Rich and his team could present some examples of how the 40R legislation has been used, and how they look to develop what I believe has the potential to really carry downtown Ashland into the next stages of vibrancy. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Rich Gordon, who is the owner of the project, and through you, Chairman Graves, allow Rich to speak and to introduce his team, and therefore start their presentation.
Great. Yes. Welcome, Rich, and the floor is yours. You are still muted. Jen, can you unmute? I'm not a host, so I can't. There we go.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We're actually going to kick this off with my attorney, Joe Antonellis. He's going to run point, and I'm going to be the second speaker. So, Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the Board of Selectmen, thank you for the opportunity. This is a very exciting project for Richard. I think that you'll see that everyone on the team.
Joe, stop you. Yes. Do you have two devices going? Because we're hearing an echo.
No, I don't. But I hear it all. Should I mute myself?
No, we can't. You don't want to mute. No. Are you wearing a headset?
No. I'm on my iPad. Maybe if I did it with my telephone, is it still echoing?
Now you're fine.
Okay. Maybe I had my hand over the microphone. I apologize.
That's okay.
Well, I will begin again. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Richard Gordon, I've known for many, many years. I was involved representing Richard when he bought the property at 1050 Main Street. And I remember the initial conversation that he had with me that he said, at the present time, I have some rentals there. I have some grandiose ideas about making this building the showcase in downtown Ashland. And I listened carefully, wrote down my notes. I do a lot of land use law. And over the last few years, Rich and I have spent a lot of time talking about the possibilities of the redevelopment of that structure. We have chosen to move forward with the attempt to create a zoning district under 40R, as Peter explained to you. And I can tell you from the outset that as a community, you are incredibly lucky that your town council, Lisa Mead, probably knows more about 40R development than any other person I've ever spoken with about it. And so I know moving forward that as your community has questions about the process of what 40R is, that you already have the person in place to give you probably the best advice that you could seek from any town council's office. Lisa has been involved with it on multiple occasions And the first conversations we had about it, I took notes, and I took them very carefully. Because while I thought I had an understanding of it, the intricacies of it that she's been involved with were far more complex than I had imagined. Be that as it may, I think you will see over tonight that the team that Rich has put together is a group of people, all of whom have had some experience in the town of Ashland. I have done some permitting in Ashland, and the rest of the people that you're going to meet tonight all have an intimate knowledge of your community. And I think generally over the course of my career, I've never been involved with a project where as many people have been so excited. I think you're going to see again tonight the amount of effort that Richard has put into this project by the allowance that he's given his team to provide you with an overview of information tonight. There are a lot of people who can provide you with a lot more information about tonight's project than can I. So I'd like to just kind of give you an idea of who's going to speak. And then what I think the best thing is we'll just let us go down. If you allow us to follow the agenda we've created, I think it'll provide the most answers without questions being asked. And then we can take the time to respond to any questions that the board, town administrators or personnel might have, as well as the general public. So after Richard speaks, and he's going to make an introductory remark, Craig Seymour of RKG Associates Incorporated is going to provide you with a detailed summary of the economic benefits that can be derived from this project, both by way just of the general economic motor that will create from the redevelopment of these buildings, but also from the very, very attractive incentives that are provided to a community that gets involved with a state mandate, with the state sanctioned 40R project. I just want to make, again, one little note about the 40R. In all of my experience as a land use lawyer, which is considerable, the 40R, I think, provides the greatest opportunity for a combination of a town and a developer to work together. The statute is labeled the Smart Growth Zoning and Housing Production Act. And I really believe that that's an appropriate name because it allows a lot of smart people, I hope, to get together and drive forward a development or redevelopment of an area that otherwise might go unattended to in the normal development process. Obviously, the cost of development, there have to be some incentives involved for the town to be to take on some additional housing, and also for the developer to put the finances that are involved. And I think that Craig is going to be able to provide you with a pretty good basis to get us started in the question and answer periods that will follow over the next few weeks. After Craig is done, Scott Richardson of Gorman and Richardson, an architectural, it's actually Gorman, Richard and Lewis, an architectural firm that has been intimately involved in the Metro West area for at least 30 years or so, is going to show you the plans that his firm has devised for the repurposing of this building. And there you will, I think, note that there's been a significant amount of work and planning that have gone into these plans. And all the time we've tried to give as much due consideration to both the history of Ashland and the future of Ashland at the same time. And I have to compliment Scott in advance of his presentation, because the last renderings that he put together, I think, really do encompass a sense of understanding of both past, present, and future. After Scott completes his presentation, George Connors of Cornerstone Engineering will talk to you briefly about some of the civil engineering aspects that are involved in the project. George is very familiar with your revitalization downtown project, has been able to look at some of the plans that you have in place and the contracts ready to go for the improvements downtown relative to utilities, etc. He's done a very, very thorough study on your sewer and water capacities, and has come to the conclusion that the town, with some minimal upgrades that the developer will be very involved with, will be able to handle the sewer and water capacities for the proposed project, which, as you'll learn, will be mixed use with the primary residential component. Once George is done, I think that obviously what we'd like to do is turn it back to the chair and have the opportunity to perhaps set forth a schedule about how we can cooperatively move forward. I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to tell the Board of Selectmen through the chair and all of you that it has been an absolute pleasure working with your staff. We have been welcomed by Michael, Peter, and Beth, and we've been given all of the assistance and opportunity that anyone would ever expect from a community. And we appreciate that. Again, I work in a lot of communities, and I can't say that about all the staff in the communities I work with. We've also taken some time to meet with DPU Director Doug Small. We've spoken with Fire Chief Roby, and I think we've also been in touch with Megan at the Conservation Commission and are aware of some specific issues regarding the river behind the building and the spillways that exist and the beautification of what we think can be an absolute gem for downtown Ashland. So with that backdrop, I'll stop talking and let the people who know a little bit more about specific aspects of this take over. And so I'll turn it over to Rich. And again, Madam Chair and Board, thank you very much for the opportunity in setting up this meeting, giving us this time early in the evening to make a full presentation. Thank you.
You are very welcome. And Rich, I look forward to hearing from you.
Sure. Well, hello, my name is Rich Gordon, and I'm the owner of 10 through 50 Main Street. I purchased this property over 8 years ago with the idea that I would do what I could do to build it up as a rental property as it has been for a long time. However, ultimately, I'd envisioned for the longer term to do some sort of development here. As time has gone on, I've done as much as I can do to improve the existing structures and property, and now can clearly see that the time is right to take the next steps. That being said, I was approached by Beth Reynolds about 2 years ago, and she had presented to me the plans that were taking place in the town to redevelop the downtown area. This really got my attention, and the wheels started turning on envisioning what could potentially become a great mixed-use development. Since that time, I've met with Beth, Mike Hebert, Peter Matchik many times to discuss not only what the revitalized downtown plans look like, but how my property could become this incredible gateway to the entrance of Ashland. As you will see, my team and I have put together all of this to present to you this evening. A little bit about myself. I have over 30 years construction experience. I'm the owner of a site work and general construction company that I founded in the early 90s. On the development side, I own several commercial rental properties. I've built subdivisions, commercial properties in Framingham, Holliston, Newton, among other places as well. I've worked alongside engineers and general contractors building dozens of projects very similar to what we're proposing here. The general scope and the vision for this development is to save and build upon the signature historical look that has remained here for over 100 years. To accomplish this, it's our intent to reuse the existing granite facades by keeping them intact during demolition and building the new structures around the existing granite. This will give us the ability to build new state-of-the-art structures and easily maintain compliance with all building codes while keeping our commitment to building a sustainable development. There's several significant features of this development that I feel are very important and can truly benefit the town and coincide with the work the town is already planning. As we're pursuing this project to be a 40R development. Craig Seymour will go into much more detail on this, but the one major point that I want to put on the table is that we are cognizant of the need for affordable housing. We are committed to providing 25% of this project to be affordable. It's our intent to reuse the solar panels that are currently on the building and utilize them on newly constructed buildings. If there's excess energy generated from this, it's my intention to give back to the town for use on Main Street. Will be fully compatible with green vehicle outlets, including electric cars, in an effort to promote our commitment to building more sustainable community. We intend to have full-time electric shuttle bus for all tenants to use to get to and from the commuter rail. Lastly, I've always envisioned a river walk from the waterfall all the way around the property out to the front of Main Street across from the town hall. In addition to this, you'll be able to see from our plans that there's room for us to build a park for the Ashland community to use. All these features are very important for us to incorporate into the development. It's our intent to work with the town in every way possible to develop something that will shine and bring Ashland a great new look and be a part of Ashland's vision to bring families, business, and development to all the people of this community. I'd like to also thank you for your time. And at this point, I'd like to turn over to our next speaker, which is Craig Seymour.
Thank you, Rich. Okay, Craig, all you.
There, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Thanks. It's got the presentation that covered my screen. So there we go. Thank you, Rich, and good evening, everyone. It's nice to at least be virtually back in Ashland tonight. As Rich mentioned, and as Joe mentioned, I've been there before a couple of times, which I'll talk about in just a second. Rich, if you can go to the next slide, I'll start this off with kind of an introduction and an overview. RKG's role in this was to, in this process, is to help analyze the economics and the fiscal impacts on the community. And that's what I'm going to start with tonight. And as well as kind of an quick overview of the 40R process and what it means to the town. The revitalization of Main Street, just the redevelopment of this property has been thought about and planned for nearly 2 decades. It was mentioned actually in the 2003 master plan. In the planning efforts since that time, it's been both downtown revitalization and this property, again, standing out, has been mentioned and talked about, including the 2010 plan that kind of kicked it all off, and the BSC plans that have been ongoing since that time. And I think importantly, in the 2015 Urban Land Institute a workshop, the Technical Assistance Program workshop, which I was invited to be one of the experts in that. And one of the findings that we came up with that is that, and I kind of quoted here, but residential development, it brings foot traffic, it brings people to the street and activates the main street of a community. And it also helps support commercial growth through the spending power of the rooftops of the people, the families that are living there. And Ashland, at the time in 2015, while downtown was nice and relatively successful, it hadn't, and still doesn't have that real impetus to start to move forward and become a destination in its own right. The follow-up studies, the implementation of the downtown improvements that are going on now have really started to revitalize downtown. And this project, I think, is kind of a capstone and can serve truly as a catalyst for really moving the entire process forward and getting downtown Ashland into the position where it wants to be. Next one, Rich. This is from one of the BSC studies. You can see the important location of 10 to 50 Main Street. And I think it's really important in this case to point out that this is really a gateway. When people come into Ashland, maybe for the first time from the north, from the Turnpike, this is what they see. And in many ways, what they see first, first meetings are very important, is the expectations. And when they see what's there now, which is, it's not the prettiest building in the world. It shows its age. It has some historic charm to it, as Rich mentioned, but it's not presented very well. And that kind of sets their expectations for what's to follow. With the downtown improvements that are being planned, with the investment that's going on now, this project is key to really setting that tone for downtown Ashland. Next one. Fiscal impacts, and fiscal impacts are defined as the revenue that's brought in from property taxes to the general fund, less the municipal service costs required for the community to have that particular use in the town. Today, 10 to 50 Main Street, it's about 116,000 square feet of older industrial space sitting on 8 acres. It's currently assessed at just over $1.5 million. Most of that's in the land, roughly about $1 million plus is in the land value. The rest, 400 and something thousand, is in the building that's there, and it currently pays about $25,000 annual property taxes. The proposed redevelopment that you're going to see in a minute is going to bring the total assessed value for this property up in excess of $65 million and generate about $1 million plus in annual tax revenue from the $25,000 that's paid today. Now, netting out what we've calculated to be the municipal service costs that this project the town will bear as a result of this, nets out to a net of about $650,000 in new usable tax dollars per year for the town. What's included in the costs of the town are the municipal service costs for police, fire, and the public works of about $280,000. And we've got details on that we'll be able to share with you later on in further conversations that we have. Education costs are estimated at about $190,000 per year. And we're estimating about 23 students will live in this project. That's based upon several factors, including looking at similar projects around Boston metro area, but more importantly, looking up the hill at the Cirrus Apartments, which are generating very few kids out of there. And also, by the way, I just got some information today that if you're familiar with Assembly Square, all the developments going in there, we are doing some work for the developer there, and he shared with us today that there's nearly 1,000 housing units in Assembly Square today. And right now there are 10 school-age children in that development. This reflects a lot of the trends that we see in development, trends in families. And so we're not expecting a lot of kids coming out of that. But even if we're wrong and more kids come out, there is still plenty of tax revenue being generated to support that. We've also netted out of there the taxes of $6,800 that the building portion pays in taxes today to come up with that net of $650. The other revenue that's going to be generated by this is about $1.8 million in building permits and utility hookup fees. These one-time fees come in at the beginning of the project. The building permit fees go to offset any costs that the community has for inspections and those types of things. And this is a big project, which is going to take time from the inspector's office and the various contract inspectors that you use for electrical and plumbing and so on. But the other thing to keep in mind is for large projects like that, the architects and engineers, their licenses are at stake. And so they end up setting up procedures and reviews, sometimes using their own outside consultant to make sure that this thing meets code. And as a result, the review process, from our experience for large scale projects like that, is actually not that onerous for towns like Ashland. The utility hookup fees for the water and sewer fees are going to be based upon the capacity that's going to be generated. And those are significant, and those go into those enterprise funds to be used for not only the infrastructure necessary to set it up, but also to make sure that there is sufficient capacity down the road and in the future to handle this. Next one, please. On top of the fiscal impacts, there are economic impacts. And just to go over some of these, we estimate, and what we did is we've run this through some economic software packages to be able to calculate both the direct impacts in the number of jobs as well as the indirect and induced impacts. This is going to generate about 290 full-time equivalent construction positions over the term of the construction period, and they're going to pay wages of nearly $23 million. The ongoing employment from the on-site commercial and retail uses, which you'll see when you see the plan in a minute, is about 70 jobs paying about $1.8 million in wages. Now there's going to be an opportunity to retain some of these existing businesses and these jobs, either on-site or elsewhere in Ashland. And we've been talking to Beth about the opportunity to do that. And certainly with the 40R program, if that's in place, that provides an awful lot of resources to be able to not only help the town with this project, but more importantly, help the town with its other economic development efforts going along. When you spend money in a community, that money circulates through the community both directly and indirectly. And the economic spin-off of that generates another 230 jobs from the construction alone within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Many of those will be local. And approximately 34 other ongoing positions from the full-time activity from the retail sales and the salaries that are paid to the people working there. And that generates about $1.3 million in wages on top of what's there today. Short-term sales tax receipts to the state, about $1.7 million. We've concluded that if a restaurant or other food service goes in there, and we haven't included this as a revenue, there's an opportunity for the town to also generate local sales tax, local meals tax on that, the local option tax, and that could be another $18,000, $20,000 a year coming in. Very importantly here, though, and why this project really helps serve as a catalyst is the consumer spending demand from the households who are going to live there. We've estimated to be about $10 million a year. And some of that may be captured by local Ashland businesses. Not all of it will be, obviously. People will go and shop elsewhere, but some of it will be. And particularly as downtown becomes much more of a walkable community. And we've seen now that people who are moving to projects like this like to walk around their towns and walk down and get coffee across the street, or walk down and do their shopping at the local food market or the meat store, whatever it might be. That money, a certain portion of that money is going to stay in Ashland and benefit everyone. Next slide, please. Just briefly, and I think Joe's going to come back to this, to talk about the 40R Smart Growth Program. He I think, laid out a good introduction to that. What's interesting that this Smart Growth Program ties transit-oriented development with good planning practices, and then integrates that across the wide range of state regulations, making it much easier to work through all those regulations, and also brings in the various regulatory agencies all on the same page, all working together with the community to move the process forward. There's an eligibility that requires 20% affordable at 80% of AMI. As Rich mentioned, he's promising a 25% affordable. It is a project that looks at higher density. That's good planning practice, and a minimum of 20 units per acre, and certainly the project meets that. More importantly to the community, there are payments, the incentives in order to do this are financial incentives. For changing the zoning to allow this 40R program to go forward, the town can receive $10,000 per unit. In this case, we're based on 270 units. That's $350,000 in one-time check to the town. And as mentioned, Lisa Mead is the smartest person on this, and she'll probably correct some of this for me, but this is the general information. There's also a density bonus that, over and above, since it's an industrial zone now, the new density that's being proposed for this will generate 100% of this revenue coming in. And that's $3,000 per unit, or $810,000. That can only be used for capital improvements, but it can be used for capital improvements throughout the 40R district, which means streetscape, which means transportation, which means a variety of different things. Projects that the town is going to pay for anyway, it now has the state money come in to help you pay for that. Also importantly is, by having a 40R Smart Growth Program, you have priority for state grants, whether it's mass growth, transportation planning grants, or other grants. It gives you a few more checkpoints on that to get you to the top of the queue a little bit faster. And lastly, it is also tied in with 40S, which is the school reimbursement program. If a more detailed impact analysis shows that the school kids come in and they are causing a negative fiscal impact to the school system, the state can reimburse for that. So that takes away some of the risks of this, and particularly when it comes to the number of children that may or may not be living there. So I'll finish up with that and turn it over to Scott to show you the program. Thank you.
Thanks,
Scott,
Greg. Yep.
Ready?
I should be. So everybody see the overall site plan at this point?
Yep.
Okay. So I actually have some interesting history in Ashland. Scott Richardson with Gorman Richardson Lewis Architects. We actually started our office in Ashland in 1976. So we're been around a little longer than 30 years, as Joe stated. It's more like 44. So we worked out of my partner's apartment that was right behind the post office on Main Street for about a year. And then interestingly, we ended up sharing offices with George Connors and his group over at 21 Homer Ave for about a year. And then we did move our offices up to 30 Main Street. And we're there for about, I think, close to 18 years before we moved our offices now to Hopkinton. So pretty familiar with the town of Ashland, having lived there also on Main Street for about 4 years and having our office in town. And again, realizing the benefits of working, living, and enjoying life in downtown Ashland, which even then was fun because John Stone's was there and Nick's Pizza was there and parks were there. So again, so we're pretty familiar with these buildings. We respect the history of them and the iconic imagery of these buildings. But as we know, they're tired. They have served their function of industrial and or commercial space over the years. And so the concept, as Rich alluded to, is to basically maintain the facades, the granite facades, primarily of 10 and 30 Main Street as being the most iconic granite facades. And then basically in order to make the remaining buildings viable as far as footprints and sizes, these would be primarily all new construction. So we're basically looking at the site plan. As you know, there is diagonal parking along the front, which we think and believe can still remain, whether it's a combination of parallel parking or diagonal parking. I know that you have a downtown revitalization program underway, which does actually eliminate this parking in front of these buildings. Our proposal at this point includes parking there because we are looking at doing retail and office uses on the first floor of all of these buildings that face Main Street. People are pretty familiar with the way the parking works all around the building and the fact that there is this retaining wall that runs around the building in the back between the building and the river. There's about a 5-foot grade differential here. And so what we're proposing, as Rich has alluded to, is again, creating a river walk along the top of that wall. So you have the vistas down into the river, back to the new buildings, and then tying into a park area over in this area. What we developed is a parking podium. So you would enter at basically at street level. We'd be building a parking podium that would be at street level. We are lining an entrance and exit to take advantage of the traffic lights that are here. So the primary main entrance into the parking in this area of the building would be traffic controlled. Again, we have 5 buildings that some of them of which are connected on upper levels in the back. And then what this is showing is a roof deck area, which would incorporate a pool and showers and restrooms on the top level for the residents. So generally, as you're coming from the north and coming up on Main Street to turn south on Main, you would be looking at, again, the stone facades of the first 2 buildings, salvaged and probably reconstructed to a certain extent. And again, I just want to preface this that these are very conceptual at this point, and certainly the final configuration of windows and doors and materials are not worked out. But again, we want to present what we're looking at as far as an overall concept of the massing and the scale of these buildings for your review and comment. So as I mentioned, all of the buildings now are connected at the street level. You know that some of them have various different heights and above street level. We want to make sure they're all accessible from street level. And again, we are convinced that this diagonal parking can work here and still create a planted buffer for safety. And then the upper levels, there are actually two main levels of residential construction in all 5 buildings. So you have a 3-story facade, if you will, on all buildings. And then the 4th floor is stepped back, I think, about 15 feet. So visually, again, as you're driving and or walking along, you will see just a 3-story element. And then we do have a 4th floor that sits back from the street. Again, from the south, viewing to the north, coming up Main Street, you would again have this traffic controlled in and out of the residential primary parking access in between these 2 buildings. And then again, we have the concept of the retail and or office spaces on the 1st floor. Around the back, again, conceptually, we have this river walk at the retaining wall. We do have this elevated deck that I mentioned that comes in at Main Street level and then goes down to the lower levels and then wraps around the building. And again, as you can see from the back, we're trying to incorporate the reuse of some granite on the first 2 levels. The basement level also is, again, primarily devoted to parking and services. I do apologize for the watercolor. Sometimes when it shows up on the screen, it looks like it's New England colored water versus Bermuda colored water. But when we print it out, sometimes it comes out like this. So rest assured, we're not changing the color of the water. So again, from this, from the back, what would be the southeast corner of the site, you're looking back at the building massing, you see the ramp of the parking deck. And again, we have parking underneath this deck. And again, we're entering an exit at this parking deck at the Main Street elevation. And this is looking down further at the at the park, walking park, and there'd probably be some, sitting areas and maybe some areas for shaded enjoyment and gathering at that location. And then a view of the rooftop pool area. Again, conceptually, we are devoting the lower levels, which again are basement spaces in all the buildings. Now these 2 buildings, and then the new buildings would all be parking to have parking for residents and visitors. The concept at this point is about 270 units. And so we are proposing about 430 spaces kind of underneath the building and on the deck. And then there are about 15 parking spaces along the front of the building. Again, keep in mind, this is conceptual at this point. And then generically, this is primarily the 1st floor space. We realize that 10-20 could be an ideal location for a restaurant. So that's kind of what we're saying here. But again, all these spaces along Main Street are the retail, commercial, restaurant spaces. And then behind them are the units and housing. And again, all of them have elevators that go down to the parking level. So people can come in, park their car, get in the elevator and go up to their unit. And again, the upper levels are fairly similar. 2nd and 3rd floor are virtually identical. And then the 4th floor, as you can see, we pushed this back about 15 feet for these roof decks. The one that is directly adjacent or accessible to the unit that's there would be a private roof deck. And then there'd be a common rooftop area, potentially some common area on these spaces for the residents. And then in the back of number 40, we do have kind of a fitness center, a multi-purpose room, and then elevator and stairs up to the pool deck, which is above this area. So again, this would be the rooftop pool with restrooms, showers, and access to stairs and elevators. And again, we have probably twice as much roof area that exists now for solar panels and rooftop equipment. Again, typical unit layouts have been somewhat started to be looked at in order to confirm that we have the right sizing and spacing for the complex. So that is, again, conceptually the image and feel that we are looking to develop here. We think that while that may sound like a lot of units, we believe with on almost an 8-acre parcel that they are properly sized and will complement the downtown with the rhythm that is, we're kind of familiar with this rhythm of these buildings. You know, you have the 3 buildings and then the 50 Main Street at the end, the brick building. So we're like the effect that we've created with continuing the rhythm and the spacing between the buildings. But again, developing, I think, close to 27,000 square feet of potential retail, restaurant, and commercial space on the first floor. And again, having the residential component to support those uses, I think will provide again, as Joe mentioned, that this is a gateway from the north. Will provide a welcoming and more exciting and vibrant complex and community spaces. So that's my presentation. George, did you?
I'm ready to go?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to first point out that the entire site that we're working on has already been either paved or covered by buildings. So our impact to the site is just move things around. We'll have really no increase in impact to groundwater, to surface water, and things of that nature. We will, however, have a change to some of our infrastructure that services the building, principally water and sewer. We're going to have a different kind of flow there. And under the 40R program, we have to provide for an infrastructure certification, which the town will be asked to give us. We will give you information on our water and sewer uses. I can tell you that our water and sewer uses in the AMP, which is the highest, is probably going to be less than 0.5 CFS. I do know that after having talked to the DPW, there is some concern on Chestnut Street pumping station wet well, and we are going to evaluate our contribution to that on a pro rata basis. We will be adding that into our infrastructure certification request. Relative to traffic and transportation, Rich has mentioned there will be a shuttle bus to the nearby T station. I think that will reduce some of the impacts. Principally, as we're doing an initial traffic study for generation and safety at the intersections and at the traffic light, it appears that we will have less impact to the existing queues along Main Street because of peak periods of travel and also the interaction with the train signals. When we present that to you, we hope that it goes to BSC or traffic consultants. And we also would like to have BSC do the traffic re-signalization that is going to be taking place with the downtown revitalization plan. And we're willing to pay for that particular cost, knowing that they already have the model and it is just redundant for us to try and run a model with that train signal. It's very, very complex. But something we could request, we'd be happy with that. Relative to parking, as Scott has indicated, we have most of our parking on the site. We've lost some along the street. We reviewed the plans that BSC has prepared for that and wonder why we can't have some parking along the edge of the street, similar to downtown Natick. And we'd like to able to present a concept in front of that building to integrate parking so we don't lose many spaces. It's important to the commercial aspect of it, not only of this building, but some of the stuff across the street. And that will all be in that infrastructure certification with enough information for you to evaluate it with your consultant. In terms of the environmental impact, it is sitting in the Nyanza plume, and it's got what's called an AUL, activity use limitation. And basically that is because of vapor intrusion into the building. Parking beneath the building, that will not be a problem because there are no people that will be in the basement for long periods of time. We're working with our LSP relative to that, ventilation and things of that nature. In addition, we're going to be tearing out some foundations, going to be doing some excavation in the soil, and that we're working on, again, with the LSP to develop the protocols for that. We've identified areas that we'll be digging and replacing foundation materials and things of that nature, and they'll be handled to be removed from the site. So in terms of the Nyanza aspects, I don't think there's really much of an issue based on our discussion with the LSP. We have minimal excavations into the ground, principally for foundations. Most all of our utilities are going to come out the front of the building. And as you know, that building front sits several feet higher than the back. In terms of ecological aspects, the river is there. It's got what's called a river zone, 100-foot no disturb, but the area that is already disturbed will not be disturbed beyond that towards the river. And the area from 100 to 200 feet again is disturbed, but we're not going to be disturbing anything in addition. So we'll meet all the requirements for the river zone work. We are going to propose that river walk that they talked about on top of a wall that goes along the back of that property, kind of a pinkish purple color that goes along there. That's a concrete wall, and it's got soil on the backside of it towards the river. That is a levee type structure that flood off the site. However, FEMA has identified the site from their study and the recentmost study that it will flood in the back of that area. We believe that's wrong, and it's wrong for a couple of reasons. We're not going to dispute it because we have flood insurance, and what's underneath that building is going to be able to be taken care of. There has been for a long time, a pump station that sits in the back of the property, and it collects any stormwater and it's able to pump it out into the river. And there forever, that pump and motor look older than I am, I think. And then finally, we are going to have a closing off of the mill race, goes under the building. It used to for the building and whatever was in there for machines back in the day. So we think that all of the site work and conditions that are necessary to make this thing work are easily addressed. They're complex matters, but in terms of the permitting of it, the actual execution with diggers and that sort of thing, this is a fairly easy project from a whole standpoint. Happy to respond to any questions or expand on any of that.
And is
Madam
that-
Chair, I don't mean to, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was going to say that is basically the gist of our presentation. I did not want to spend the time going through the complexities of the 40R process other than to tell the public and the board that the zoning ordinance itself that would be necessary to do this is voted on exactly by the same procedure that any zoning ordinance would be in the town of Ashland. That would require town meeting approval with a 2/3 vote in favor of the zoning ordinance. And that cannot take place unless and until the Department of Housing and Community Development has certified the district that we're proposing as being eligible for the funds that Craig discussed with you. So it's a multi-step process for approvals and takes a cooperative effort of the developer and the town to get to this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Scott, you're welcome. Scott, if you could stop sharing, I'd appreciate that.
Yep.
First of all, I want to thank you all for your presentation. We did just have an hour scheduled on our agenda for this, but I know there's a number of people who are here listening about this, and I know a number of our select board members, and I know I have a few questions that I would like to ask. And I would say that I know for myself, I think, you know, this is the, I saw the plans that you presented to us for our agenda. I have not spoken to anyone, you know, outside of town management regarding this. So again, thank you for presenting. I'm going to start with a few questions I have, and then I'm going to open it up to the rest of my board. And then I know Michael Herbert, our town manager, has some comments. And depending on where we are with time after that, I may open it up to the public. I don't know yet. It's going to depend on timing because we do have someone else scheduled and a few other things scheduled. So ratio, just a couple of questions that I have. Your ratio of commercial to residential?
Percentage wise, you're saying?
Percentage wise, yes.
Like as if a square footage, it's about,
Yeah.
I think it's a little under 10%.
So 10% commercial and 90% residential.
Yes.
Okay. And then in regards to the number of each unit type, I know you said that what you were showing of the 270 was, you know, it's still not set in stone, but of the 270, how many are 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, and studio?
Well, we've been rejiggering those numbers. So instead of throwing something out there that I'm not 100% sure of, can I follow up with an email?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
There are more 1-bedroom units than 2-bedroom, and there are a few studios. So I'll get that to you.
I know my first reaction on seeing this is that this is large, and I appreciate the information about the economic impact, both the negatives and the positives. But for me, my first initial instinct is this is going to be a little bit big for our town and for that location. But again, that's my initial response. Certainly, I'd love to see more commercial than residential. It's something we as a community have been talking a lot about, that we need to see more commercial, more space for those kinds of things and not less. And I guess my other question is, currently it's 100% commercial, correct? The buildings?
Yeah, there is no residential component. It's all industrial, commercial,
so
retail.
Again, right there, to be losing all of that's commercial and only get 10% back, even though I know the project's going to be bigger, it's still a little disconcerting that we're going to be taking a step backwards in regards to the commercial that is there in downtown with this project. So I'm gonna leave my comments there for now, and I'm gonna go to Steve Mitchell first. Steve, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Thank you,
There you
Yolanda, and thank you to Rich and his team for the presentation. I have a list. I don't expect you to answer them tonight. I think has been expressed, this is a process. This is a long process, and but as I reviewed the backup over the last couple of days, and also reviewed the 40R concepts, I came up with a list. So I'm just going to list them, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about this for a while. So first of all, pleased to hear the receptivity to the 25% affordable. That's very important to us. A concern is the existing tenants. There are tenants in the buildings that have made sizable investments into their businesses. What happens to them? I've got concerns about the traffic flow. to have a development of that size at that intersection converging. I have concerns about that. Don't take offense at this, Mr. Gordon, but one concern is the ability to complete the project. The financial capacity to complete that. That's a concern. The site remediation portion of it. I know Mr. Connors addressed that somewhat, but I've been in the back and around that building for a number of times, and it seems like there has been some pretty dirty industries there over a period of time. So that's a concern. The density of the project, a 40R requires you to have 20 units per acre. You're looking at 34 units an acre here. So that's a pretty sizable jump from what 40R requires. So the question that I would have is, why does the project need to be 34 units an acre? The state incentives, will the state funding be available? Do we know that? It happens, many times where, these reimbursements aren't captured to the same degree despite legislation. It happens all the time. We're seeing it now with the new school project, where the reimbursements have actually been reduced over the last few years. And then state incentives versus the mitigations from the project themselves. And so that's another question for future discussion. So I think those are my list of concerns. I have to agree with Yolanda in terms of just the sheer mass of the buildings relative to our downtown. I have concern about that as well. So I'll leave it at that. I don't expect any answers for this, but that's my list.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Rob, do you want to go next? Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, first of all, I like the 40R concept, smart growth, and I think we as a community acknowledge that we need to increase housing a bit and are willing to do some increased density. So I think as a concept, and also tying it to the mass transit with the electric bus, I think those are all very effective. I think and your design where you're going to improve some of the visual stuff will be well received. I like the idea of the river park and the additional park. I think, and so I wanted to thank you for that. One thing I will introduce, you mentioned solar panels. I do want to push that the town is doing a net zero resolution. So the more, and we've got some major municipal buildings that are going to be approaching net zero that we're building. So I think it'd be important if you as a private developer could match that. I think that would be well received. So if you get a little more specific about your efforts to combat climate change and achieve net zero, I think that would be a great point. But I do want to say that this is a traditional area of downtown. And one thing, you did mention a little bit about traffic, and I think we're going to look very closely at that. A number of people, local residents, that's an important traffic route to other places as to the Pike. So if you do have a lot of people that weren't living there before adding to the traffic, I think that's going to be an important point. So your traffic impact analysis would be very important. It would be good given that type of residential development to improve the bike transit. And I'm not sure that our current plan in downtown does that, but we might want to look at that. I would say that would be an important improvement, especially to get to the train station or other areas. That's not necessarily all your responsibility, but I would suggest we look at our plans for that to make sure, given these additional people living downtown, that there's a good allowance for bike lanes and things like that. I do want to, however, just echo my colleagues' comments. The concepts are all good, but I think it is rather large, and I think that visual impact of having a row of 4-story buildings is going to be quite shocking to people. I don't know, shocking may be a strong word, But I think you're going to have some issues with that, especially getting 2/3 at town meeting. So I think you have to look at that very carefully. The number of residential units, we didn't talk about your analysis in any detail yet. We appreciate the 25%, but I'm sure as a developer, you'll say that caused you to build X number more units in terms of the economics. So I can't speak for the other board members, but I want to hear more about what's causing you to build all these units or projecting that you need to or should build this large number of housing units. I think that's going to be a key analysis. The other thing is we have our own fiscal impact tool. And so this is kind of directed more to, I think, Michael and the staff to make sure that we're reviewing these fiscal impact numbers and the various variations. And I understand you've been working with town staff for years, so I want to hear their thoughts on this kind of impact. I think it's a little large for most of our residents would expect to see. So I think that's an important factor. So anyway, I thank you for putting this together. I think this 40R concept will be supported in town, but it just has to be done the right way. So thank you for that.
Okay. Brandy or Joe?
I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
So thank you very much for the presentation and for, I really appreciate your wanting to invest in Ashland and downtown Ashland in particular. Like you said, we, as a town, this is a priority for us, and to redevelop this parcel is definitely something that I think for me personally, I support. I agree with my colleagues. I think 270 units is really large. I think the 5 buildings is a little overwhelming, and I think in general the residents probably will be skeptical of that. I do have some concerns on the commercial as well, because you're reducing it from 116,000 square foot of commercial to 27,000 square feet of commercial. I think there needs to be a little bit more of a balance there. I'm also concerned about the parking for the commercial. You had said that there was 15 spots dedicated, and I know you had mentioned a restaurant. That, I think parking in general is something that residents are concerned about in downtown. So we want to make sure that we address that as well. And I just wanted to ask this question because it sounds to me like the zoning by right currently is all industrial and commercial and wouldn't support any residential. And I just wanted to verify that was indeed correct. So it would require a zoning change, whether it's a 40R or a zoning change. Is that a correct assumption?
Can you repeat that?
Sorry.
I was writing down what else you were saying.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm just the current zoning where it's all commercial industrial currently, and it's not zoned at all for residential currently. Is that correct?
Yes, except for the overlay,
Yep. Okay.
for the downtown.
Okay. All right. So I was just trying to figure out what by right it was zoned for versus what would require the 40R change. So. I do think that, we've had some studies. You mentioned the ULI report, which I've read, and I know that, the goal is really to put density downtown Ashland to drive our residents to be more in downtown. So I think that, on a high level, this type of project makes sense. I think it's the devil's in the details, and I think that the number of units is just it's a really large number for us to, I think, to consider. So that's just my personal impression. So thank you.
Okay. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for the presentation.
I've had a prior conversation with Rich a few weeks ago. So I don't think he's going to be alarmed with what some of my comments. You're probably already aware of some of the things I'm going to tell you already, Rich. Yeah, the size and scope of the project is huge. Did talk about maybe scaling it down a tad. Again, some of my concerns had to deal with the current tenants that are there. What's going to happen to those who have put a large investment into their business and into the current buildings that they're renting out. And hopefully, you said you were going to work on some sort of a program and use some of those individuals, some of those businesses as anchors into your commercial space. Would I like to see more commercial space? Yes. To get more flow of people coming downtown, there would be a reason to come downtown. 247 living units is not something that people are going to walk down and watch. They want to go down to shop, eat, relax, type of deal. So I have to agree with my associates on the board that more commercial space to me would make sense. I did have a question back on the zoning initiative payments, section 9A. It said something about the fact of $10,000 per unit, and that came to $350,000. I don't know how you gathered that. Now, was that per building, or is it per units that you were going to build, per say like living spaces? So if it's 270 units, multiply that by 10,000. It's definitely not 350,000. So I'm not sure what that figure is for. So Craig, if you could give me an answer to that, that would be great. Maybe not now, but if you want to, email the board with respect to that, that would be fine. I'm not exactly sure what that classification was for. It's for the affordable units in it.
Just for the affordable units. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I do, and the other, go ahead, Scott.
Well, again, I think that was based on some of the initial estimates we had. If in fact we're doing 270 units and we have 25% affordable, that's 68 units. So that figure would approach $680,000. Is that correct, Craig, or is there a cap? That's correct. Okay.
Okay.
So, yep.
Thank you. My last concern, again, being a former police officer in town, has to do with the traffic, especially around the corner of Myrtle and Main. Kind of narrow there. And I don't know if there's any plans to widen that aspect or even widen the entryway off of Myrtle Street. That's a pretty good size incline coming down into that area off of Myrtle Street. And I don't know if there's any engineering designs to raise that, to reduce that impact. I didn't see anything on the map or any discussion with respect to that. So if something down the road comes up, I would like to see that or have that incorporated in the plans as well.
Yeah, we are anticipating raising that rear parking drive area so that you enter Myrtle Street in a much more safe manner.
Okay.
In addition to that, the site distance we've looked at there's going to be a pole that is going to be replaced to the beginning of the underground electric system. We're working with Edison to pick the location for that. So between the decrease in slope and the elevation that encounters, more coincident with that curve, and the relocation of the pole, that'll be a much easier intersection, both in terms of safety and maneuverability.
Thank you, George. And just to give you a brief history, Hurricane Bob, when it came through this area, that's the only time I remember that area being flooded, because it did go over the banks and it did go down into the parking lot, because at the time I was working at Fenwell and my car was underwater. So I just want to make it known.
Do you know how deep that was?
It's about 2.5 feet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to now hand this off to Michael, but before I do that, we have a number of people coming on for our 7:30. We are running a little bit late. And then before I hand it off to Michael, was there any public that had any questions, not necessarily comments on the building, but if there's a specific question that you would ask, we won't get the answer tonight, but you can at least ask it. Mark, is it a question? Shake your head, yes or no. Okay, I'm going to give it to Michael first, and then I'll let you ask your question, Mark. Go ahead, Michael.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, we appreciate the presentation. And, you know, Rich, we definitely appreciate the fact that you want to make such an investment in downtown, as I think Peter said, and I think everybody has said. This is a key parcel downtown, and for you to be willing to make that investment could be a really great thing for the town. That being said, because it is so key, it's important that we do it right. And I just really kind of want to clarify some of the staff's positions here, because it almost sounded like at the beginning like we didn't have really concerns, but we do have some concerns with the project, and I don't think they're going to be foreign to you. And actually, you've heard a lot of them from the board members themselves. You know, 270 units is a lot. We do think, you know, to put it succinctly, that it is big. You know, the massing, you know, is such that it really doesn't diminish that at all. I think there's some things that you can do with design to help minimize that, and also a lower unit count. The ratio of commercial space to residential space is critical. We do know that there's an economic analysis that goes into this, and that residential supports the commercial not only from a retail standpoint and an ongoing profitability standpoint, but also building the infrastructure itself. But the technical assistance panel actually looked at something along the lines of 15 to 20% being of commercial as something that would be appropriate. So that's certainly, I think, a goal that we should have. And then also, we do have concerns with, the existing businesses, and making sure that, especially those that have made significant investments in the town and in the building are, we'll just say, for lack of a better term, protected or made whole. And so I just want to clarify, that's the staff's position on all of this. Again, we do think it could be a great, potential thing for the town. I will say this, just the one final thing is that we have had developers come through, and they have been willing to work with the town, and we've been able to creatively think of some great things to solve some problems, and those planning processes go very smoothly. We also have people who come in and developers who come in, and it just seems like everything's a constant battle. And it just seems like there's a lot of energy that's wasted throughout those. So I encourage you to, continue to work with us as this conversation evolves, and be open-minded and willing to some of the creative ideas that we come up with.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Mark, you can ask your question. You might not get the answer tonight, but you can ask a question.
Okay, thank you. I would like to say this was a good presentation. I'd like to say that they talked about the zoning and passing and what is industrial and commercial is right. And I would like to also praise the
Mark,
the presentation.
Mark, I'm going to ask you for your question.
Oh, the question. Okay, the question. What is the future fiscal economic going to help? Will it help the businesses now, or are you going to be looking at future business that will come into it once this is built?
We're gonna ask them to take that question and get back to us on that, Mark. Thank you. So, Rich, thank you so much. As everyone has said, I think, this is an exciting opportunity for the town of Ashland. I'm seeing one more hand. Danny, if you want to email us, we can forward it on to him. I'm just seeing your hand now. Is it a quick question, Danny? Shake your head, yes or no? Yes. Okay, go ahead and ask your question, Dan. Can we unmute Dan, or Dan, unmute yourself?
Richie, you're going to break the plume, the great Nyanza plume down there. and there was no real cost. You guys didn't, you said, yeah, we're gonna break it, but you know, that could be millions and millions of dollars in the end. And you don't have to answer, and I won't ask it again, but just something to consider.
Okay.
And also, I'm glad the 5 selectmen stuck together on this. It's appreciative.
Thank you. Okay, I'm starting to see a few more hands now, and as much as I would like to be able to let everyone ask their questions, at this point, we do need to move on. So I'm going to do this. As Michael has said, this is a first step. This is a first conversation. Rich, I want to thank you for bringing your group and bringing this presentation. As I said, it is an exciting opportunity for Ashland. I think you've gotten some good feedback from all of us. I'd like you to take that feedback, go back, and then potentially have another meeting, you know, when you think you can do that, especially with the 40R having to come to town meeting. We will be having a special town meeting in December. I don't know that you'll be ready or that we'll be ready to do it at that point. Plus, we already have a number of items on that town meeting. So timing wise, I'm not sure when we'll be able to move this forward from a town meeting perspective. So, you know, let's be in touch through Michael and myself, and we'll keep this process going. Because like I said, I think it's a great opportunity. There are some concerns. You've now heard those concerns, and let's see what we can do to work together to move something forward.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you again to yourself, to George, to Scott, and to Joe,
Craig.
and
Craig.
to Craig. Sorry, I was looking at my list.
Got him.
Again, thank you very
Thank you.
much, and we look forward to seeing what we can create that's good for you and for the town.
That sounds great. Thank you all.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you all.
Everybody,
Thank you.
thanks for your team. Appreciate it.
Night.
To those who didn't get to ask your questions, I apologize. I thought I had asked for people to show me, but anyway, so we're going to move on. If you have questions, you can submit them to me directly or through the board or through Michael. We will get them through to Rich and his group. And as you heard, this is a start of the process. This is first steps. And we're trying to make it as public and inclusive in regards to discussion as possible. We're going to move on to our next item on our agenda. We are getting a presentation from Frank Nikashian, our sustainability manager, regarding a curbside food waste compost program. And Select Board, I'm going to say this to you, you basically control how quickly we move on to our next agenda item as to your questions on this. Frank, welcome back.
Thanks, Yolanda. Yeah, for those who don't know me, like Yolanda said, my name is Frank Nikashian. I'm the town sustainability coordinator, and I'm excited to present on this innovative program that the town should be releasing. And do you want me to bring the PowerPoint on my screen, or do you have? Okay, great. So I just need to access. Yeah, I just need to be given access, and I should be able to share it.
Oh, then you know what? I'll share mine.
Okay.
I have it. He's co-host now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
you should
great.
be able to do it now, Frank. Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Okay, perfect. Okay, are you able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. Great. Well, before I start in, I'd like to thank you all for having me present today. You know, I'd like to thank Michael, Jen, Peter Matchak, members of the Sustainability Committee for all, you know, giving me feedback on this program as we were hashing it out over the last few months and developing it. A quick background, one of the items I've looked at is ways to promote, you know, sustainable practices such as composting. And, you know, for this program, like I said, it was a lot of interacting with some of the town staff, some other staff from other towns such as Natick, Somerville, Holliston, Framingham, you know, just getting feedback back and forth with other sustainability analysts and sustainability directors in those towns, just to, get a sense of programs to approach and, things that have been successes and, things to avoid pitfalls, things like that. And from having those discussions, I had a really good, connection with Matt Zedek, who's the sustainability coordinator in Holliston. And we decided that it's advantageous to pursue a program to promote the adoption of a curbside composting, program in town or I should say both towns, for the promotion of curbside compost subscriptions by residents. And I'll get into the presentation now.
Great.
So, and also I'm going to be talking for a while. So if you have any general things that jump out, feel free to interrupt me at the end of the slide. I'm happy to provide any clarifications. So why encourage curbside composting? So 25% of trash that municipalities pay for, and combustion fees, which is what we do, we send the trash to incinerators, is comprised of food waste. And when food waste goes to landfills too, it's that's a source of greenhouse gas emissions. And obviously incinerators, they lead to air pollution. And when we compost the food waste, instead of just putting it into traditional landfills and incinerators, it basically just leaves the the waste stream. It leads to fertilizer and basically nutrients for soil when it's put in gardens and lawns and other facilities like growing, basically just the food source of growing crops, gardens, etc. So it's a really good way that's sustainable and environmentally friendly for managing the waste. And it's a win-win because residents that adopt a composting program, whether that's in the backyard on their own or with a vendor that does curbside composting, they produce less trash. They don't need to buy as many pay-as-you-go bags. So yeah, it's less trash they generate, and it's good for cities and towns. If food waste is composted on a large scale, towns are able to save a lot of money in disposal fees, because then all of that waste that is going into that's getting picked up and that we have to pay vendors to pick up and everything, that's being lowered. So it's really a win-win. There's really no downside to composting food waste. Okay, so, and actually I have another point too, for specifically the curbside composting. It's pretty advantageous because residents that live in apartment developments and condo developments that don't have backyards or have really limited shared backyards, they're still able to compost their food waste. And also most vendors that do offer curbside composting services accept food waste such as meats, oily products, cheeses, that type of stuff that you really can't process by yourself if you just have your own backyard compost pile for a garden or something. So it's a good way to really ensure that all food waste is being handled. Okay. So I'm going to get into the program a bit now. What this is it's a joint pilot initiative between Ashland and Holliston to promote private curbside composting activity. I want to say that we're including Holliston in this. One, because, for any sustainability initiative and, climate change obviously affects the world. So, it's always good in my mind to include other towns and communities. And the second is because the goal of the program is to get lowered costs for households that want to subscribe to this program. We're basically combining the amount of people in Ashland and Holliston to get better savings, as opposed to just having the town of Ashland, in the program. So basically, once the threshold of household subscriptions and pre-registered is reached in the two towns, so all subscribers with the program get lowered costs for services. I just want to say pre-registered, that means people that are on a waiting list, specifically that they sign up for the waiting list so that when prices go down, then they'll be notified and they should sign up. that's what that word means. And so how it will be set up is, so once the threshold's reached, all the subscriptions will be lowered, and the towns will also finance the cost of starter kits. So that's for a new subscription, a 13-gallon food waste cart and roll of bag liners. For new household subscriptions from existing grant funds. So I'll get into this in detail in the next couple slides. All this means is that the town cost is completely offset by existing in-hand grant funding. This is through the Mass DEP grants that any town and city in the Commonwealth can receive. So literally zero risk and zero cost to the town. I just want to make that clear. Every time people see town finance, I don't want to scare anyone. Okay, and the vendor that we're going with on this proposal is called Black Earth Compost, and I'll get more into them a little bit later. So yeah, let me move on to the next slide. And yeah, the last slide, it's all, Q&A. So definitely write down anything and, let me know at the last slide. Okay, so this is sort of the meat and potatoes of the Ashland commitment. So in order to offset the cost for the residents that want to sign up, like I said, the town of Ashland will fund the cost of the curbside kits, which is, the 13-gallon curbside cart and bag liners. This is $25 per subscription. And right now, currently, if any Ashland resident signs up for curbside composting services with Black Earth, they just have to front this cost. So this is another way that they're using we're using, grant resources for waste management to, sort of help out and promote curbside composting. We have set the amount of starter kits that we will commit to the first 200 new subscriptions. That is $5,000 in grant funds. We do have more money in hand for this, but we will decide at that point whether to continue financing the kits or not after a threshold is reached. We want to keep this open-ended to see how the program goes. If the program is a great success, I like to have the flexibility to say whether we want to continue or not. Maybe we don't want to finance it. That's up in the air, and that's at a later date. And the town of Holliston, it's the same, they're under the same parameters. And just to clarify, the town of Ashland would only be paying for Ashland residents. We're not touching Holliston. They're paying for their residents, and they're using the same type of grant funding. And like I said, this grant funding that we're using, all municipalities in the Commonwealth can take advantage of these just by, doing things like offering recycling services and, trash pickup for residents. That's where the funding is coming from. And how we're thinking of setting it up is we would pay Black Earth directly for starter kits. Black Earth would then deliver them to households once a household signs up for service. We want to set up this way because we don't want to incur any type of risk, any type of employee time going to this program. This way, no DPW storage space, no Ashland employee time or fuel costs will be needed to then have, folks at DPW have to ferry, let's say 17 or 18 of these carts every week to residents. I don't think that'd be fair to them. And this way it's, like I said, no fuel costs, no storage space. The vendor Black Earth would literally just deliver it right to the residents. So the Ashland involvement would just be to facilitate the program and conduct outreach. So that part would be a lot of it on myself to do this part. How we are going to set this up and how we're envisioning it would be, I already created a graphic design that we could put on social media, on the website, just advertise. We could put in newsletters. And same thing in Holliston. The administrative, financial, or operational duties are conducted by Black Earth and participating households. Any type of household that subscribes to services does not pay the town of Ashland. They would pay this vendor. We're just facilitating and partnering to get lowered rates for services for residents for this program. And how it would probably work is we would probably be paying, or actually not probably, we would be paying Black Earth monthly an invoice for the amount of subscriptions. So if we have 4 resident subscriptions in a month, we would use the grant funds we have to pay Black Earth $100, 25 times 4. Okay, so this is how we picked Black Earth as the vendor to partner with. So this program that we're starting, it's not original. I didn't just make this up. We really wanted to look at what other programs have been done in other towns that have been successful. So we did some research and found out that Natick, Marlborough actually just released a program very similar. Salem, Manchester by the Sea, Newton, all these towns have had a program very similar where the town partners with Black Earth Compost to offer reduction of services once we get a threshold of subscriptions. And we reached out to the staff, and everyone's had good things to say about Black Earth. The other part of it is Black Earth offers services including textile recycling, garden waste pickup. They're willing to give presentations at farmers markets when we're able to with COVID and everything. But basically, they give a lot of extra services as well, which is definitely appealing for a vendor to partner with. And Black Earth sends waste to processing facilities that use the material for nutrients and food creation. There are some compost vendors where they just send it for, industrial scale where it doesn't, create basically nutrients. It doesn't create any type of garden materials. Your residents actually can choose to receive the finished, compost product that you could put in gardens, that you could put in lawns, any type of outdoor uses for, growing gardens and things like that. So all of that is available for any type of resident in the program. So the existing rates, I mentioned that once we get a threshold, the rates will go down. Currently in Ashland and Holliston, any resident that subscribes to service with Black Earth for curbside pickup pays $99.99 for a 6-month subscription. And I just want to say, when I say the subscriptions, what the service is, this is weekly pickup of the compost food waste. So think of it like recycling and trash, except it's another bin that you throw outside and Black Earth comes and picks it up and then gives you back your empty bin. So like I said, it's $100 for a 6-month subscription, a weekly service, and residents also have to pay $25 for a one-time charge. And that's for that 13-gallon cart and the bag liners. Now, right now, about 190 households in both towns have subscriptions. There are another 150 more pre-registered. And like I said before, pre-registered just basically means they put their name on a wait list to be notified when the prices go down. Okay, so the proposed new rates. To kick off the initiative, once the program starts, once we have a set date, for the first 3 months to kick it off, the price will be dropped to $89.99, which is good. It's a $10, just for the 6-month subscription for new and renewing. We're putting that on the advertising material and flyers for the program. So the number to get reduction in prices, once 500 household subscriptions and pre-registered are reached in the towns, the price will drop from $99.99 to $59.99 for 6 months. So this rate was negotiated by myself and Matt Zedek with Black Earth Compost. And we were able to negotiate a lower price. Originally, we weren't even able to get that to this price, but it's good. It's a 40% reduction. And if you count the existing subscriptions and the pre-registered subscriptions, we're already over 300 subscriptions. So this is a very, in my mind, obtainable target of 500. A long-term goal is if we get to 900 household subscriptions, they'll drop it to $49.99 for 6 months. So that's literally a 50% reduction in price. Okay, I just want to say before we go into questions that things that I forgot to mention. So the timeline on this is very flexible. In my mind, we can start this, once I hear from your comments and we relay them with Black Earth. I think that the finance aspects taken care of on sending the funds out. We have some of the promotional materials already. We'd obviously need to have a last meeting with Black Earth to confirm it and to confer. On the Holliston side, Matt Zedek is meeting and giving a similar presentation that I'm giving next Monday to their select board. And then I just wanted to say that when we were selecting vendors, we also chose Black Earth because they're the only vendor that will reach, Metro West. There really aren't that many vendors out right now that do programs like this. And you'd have to be in the city proper of Boston or potentially, Western Mass to have other vendors that do these services. So right now, Black Earth, like I said, they have done similar programs throughout the state and, about a half dozen communities like our program, and they're able to hit Metro West. So, yeah, with that, I'm open to, I've been talking for a while. So let me know your questions and I'm happy to hopefully give some clarification.
Okay, why don't you stop sharing your screen? And thank you for the presentation, Frank. I was excited to see this. I personally had done a little research on Black Earth a few months ago because I was doing stuff in the area. So it's nice to see a program like this that if a number of us are doing it, it could reduce everyone's costs. The grant money that you spoke about that's going to be paying for that, can you just clarify a little bit more what that grant is?
Yes, of course. It's called the Recycling Dividend Funds Program.
Okay.
So this is administered by the Mass DEP, Mass Department of Environmental Protection, and they give funds annually for towns that apply. And towns are available to get funding by doing things like offering, recycling pickup and pay as you throw bags and those type of best practice, implementation. So that's how the funding is allocated. And right now we have 9,000 in hand, but obviously we don't have to use all of it for the program. And we're committing 5,000, or we're proposing to commit 5,000 of that for the program. I've been in touch with Dave Miller, who's, at DPW, and we've been going back and forth. I've been talking to him a bunch on, sort of getting his, thoughts on the program. And, he also put in, the annual request for funds earlier this summer too. So.
Okay. Good. Well, I think it's a great program, and I'm sure you'll get some other feedback and questions. So thank you for that. Other board members, questions, comments? Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Frank, nice job, nice presentation. You're too young to remember this, but there used to be a pig farmer that used to go around weekly and pick up garbage in garbage bins.
Yeah.
This is years ago. They don't do it anymore. But just let you know, the bags that are utilized, are those biodegradable? I would assume. I hope.
They are. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, these are compostable bags, and I really wanted to make sure they included this for the starter kits, which they are, because I'm thinking that it's always good. I know summer unfortunately is done, but I want to make sure that if we roll this out, that they have bags for this. After after they get the first roll of bag liners, they have to pay themselves, but they could also buy it directly from Black Earth, or they could use their own type of bags. They could use cardboard, or they could just try to, there are ways to DIY it.
Right. One last question, Frank, and I appreciate your answering. It's kind of weird if someone does it for 6 months and then realizes that's not something that they want to do, and they don't decide to resign. What happens with that figure? Because now you're reducing that, that number by one, especially if you have a set goal that you have in mind for price reduction. Does that change, or once you hit that, say 500, will the price stay the same, or will it be effective if people, realize this is not what they want and they start backing out? Yeah,
in my mind, that number should stay the same. you know, if we're at 500 or 501 and then 2 people drop out, you know, I think that would be in bad faith for them to sort of lower the price. Obviously, if a whole bunch of people for some reason back out, then that could be a possibility. But the way I'm looking at it, it would be, you know, continual subscriptions. So even if we're at 500 and, you know, people drop out, or we hit the 500, which is the subscriptions and the pre-registered, if a lot of folks on the pre-registered that did say they wanted to sign up don't, because, you know, maybe it was on the radar at some point, but it's not anymore. You know, I'm thinking that still would be at the point where we'd be continuously getting new subscriptions, so it shouldn't impact it. And actually, you know, I did ask at what point would those rates be raised again, you know, even if we do get the 500, you know, at what point would they ever raise it? And, you know, they basically said they haven't raised it in any of the other towns they partnered with. It would only be if there's more chaos, you know, sort of like an act of God type situation with, you know, oil prices affecting their, you know, shipping trucks, or just if, you know, hopefully 2020 is bad enough. Hopefully nothing gets worse. But if something like that happens, then they might raise the prices. But they said they haven't raised the prices in any other town that they've done this program with.
Okay, is there a contingency plan should Black Earth belly up and shut the doors? Who would take over?
So the good part of this program is we can go with any vendor that wants to offer us competitive services. So yeah, if they go under, we would have to find another vendor. And unfortunately, we would have to renegotiate rates, and would have to find a company that'd be able to handle 2 towns, you know, that has the bandwidth to offer good service and basically do the program. But like I said, the good thing is we're not locked into anything major with this. So in my mind, would be able to select another vendor. Although, like I said before, right now, the ecosystem with, you know, cloud hosting services, there aren't too many players out there, but would just have to look for other companies.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Anybody else? Rob?
Yeah, just thanks, Frank. I think it's a good concept. Did you say this is an existing program? There's current subscribers. This is actually happening now?
So the company Black Earth has subscribers in Ashland and Holliston. So
they on their own, pretty much. Is that it?
Exactly. Yep.
And I guess the other, and I may have missed it, but has this been vetted by the Sustainability Committee? Is this part of their initiatives? I'd feel more comfortable if they kind of reviewed the details and endorsed this. What kind of process has happened there?
Yeah, so I've been vetting this in the past with the Sustainability Committee. They helped me out along with other town staff in this process. I don't know if any formal endorsement, but then again, I don't think it was on any specific agenda to endorse it.
In the past, yeah. They've talked about composting. Of course, we've got this whole net zero initiative, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess this is part of that. But I think it'd be good to have a committee of residents just review some of these details and make sure they're on board with this. That would be kind of my feeling with this. And I'm sure they'd be supportive of the concept. Sometimes maybe some of the details. It sounds like it's just you and Matt are dealing with the details on this. So I'd feel a little better if it was a little more widespread in terms of people reviewing some of the ins and outs of this.
No, I completely agree. And just to clarify, on their presentation they gave on the net zero plan, this is part of the net zero plan for waste reduction efforts in town and promotion of sustainable practices. So they did put on their specific outreach plan. But yeah, I can definitely send the presentation and discuss at the next committee meeting as well. And just to clarify, for the program development, I also met with Michael a few times and Peter Matchak and some of the other staff internally as well. So
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
If I may add.
That's all.
Yep. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah.
And then Steve.
So this is you know, we moved forward with this because it was the best available option at the time, Rob. Actually, it was like one of the few, if only, option that we could use at the time that would provide some level of a town-wide compost type of service, subsidized. That doesn't preclude us from working towards other things. Like I would like to see a real town-wide, maybe town-offered compost service as well. Of course, that requires land and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. And yeah, I definitely agree. I was originally thinking, oh, what if we just put out a town-sponsored program? But unfortunately, right now it's surprising. The DEP actually doesn't give out any aid for towns in rolling out municipal financed and municipal run composting. So the only towns that really do that are Cambridge and Manchester by the Sea. Those are the only towns that I'm aware of that do any town financed programs. I hope that they I hope there's more state funding in the future for that. But yeah, the way I'm looking at it is, we roll out this program and see the interest of it. And then I think that's a good target down the line to offer more, directly financed municipal involvement. But I personally don't think we're ready to be at that stage yet, just because of the, financial implications as well.
Yeah, I think this is a good mix of using an organization that already has it in place that then can support, and certainly that we're partnering with Holliston. That's very good. Steve? Unmute. You're muted.
Thank you, Frank. Great job as always. And, thank you for all your work in getting these grants and working on it. Your passion for this stuff is really evident. So thank you.
I appreciate it.
Couple things that, I'm not very knowledgeable about composting. So just clarify, you mentioned earlier a couple of the food items that you could throw into this composting service that you wouldn't necessarily throw into your backyard compost pile. So are there any limitations in terms of what can be disposed through this program? And then a second question I would have is, where does somebody typically keep these containers at their homes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the upside of this program is you can, throw stuff like pizza and, meats and cheeses and dairy products and stuff. And the person that takes it away, they can all handle that, that type of material. It is tough to do that for the home composting pile in your backyard, just because it's, it gets difficult if you put oily and, meat foods and stuff like that there. So they can accept all foods. They can accept eggshells and, corn husks and avocado rinds, basically any type of, food waste. They wouldn't be able to, obviously, you can't just throw oil in there, like if you're making tacos and burgers and things like that. But, all other food products they should be able to handle. Unfortunately, the Black Earth doesn't take yard waste, and they don't take grass clippings. I'm not sure of the exact reason why they don't offer this service, because that's what I was thinking of. But they offer, for residents that want to pay for the service, they can give those residents, hopefully at a discount. Actually, I'll reach out to see if they do give a discount for, yard waste pickup, because they offer that, but they have to have it in separate containers, and it can't be with the regular program. So yeah, to my knowledge, any type of food waste products, including, meats and eggshells and things like that, not yard waste and not garden waste.
Okay. And in terms of where somebody would locate the container, typically, where's it typically kept? In the backyard and in the garage?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the resident. I think that a garage would be a good location for it, because it's, indoor, no risk of having any animals getting into it. If they really take care of it well and make sure that it's clean and use bag liners, then they could keep it in the kitchen. And, every time they are done eating or, making food, they could just put the scraps right in the 13-gallon bucket. And, some folks that have services for, composting or do it themselves, they'll have a separate, kitchen scrap bucket that they can then, after they're done eating, they could put it into that 13-gallon buckets. So yeah, in my mind, I think a garage would be a great spot for it. Or, backyard potentially, but I'm thinking it might not be the safest because animals can get into it if it's just left outside.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Great. So next steps, Frank. Oh,
Thank-
Randy, you have some questions? Sorry.
That's okay, no worries. Thank you, Frank. It was a great presentation. It's exciting to roll out a townwide composting program. So I've heard some really good feedback from residents that I know that are already subscribing to Black Earth. So I think the service level seems to be very good, which is great to hear. I was wondering on the finished compost. So you had mentioned that Black Earth will deliver compost to residents. Is that part of the standard fee that people pay, or is it something else that they would have to, like an add-on type thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So to my knowledge, it's completely free and part of the program.
Okay.
And, residents don't have to get it. It's if they so choose to receive the finished product for gardening.
Okay, thanks. And you had also mentioned that Natick and Marlborough had rolled out similar programs to what we're doing. I was curious how successful they've been and sort of what their number of subscribers has been, since they've rolled it out.
Yeah, so Natick's program has been very successful. They have now over 1,000 subscriptions in town. Theirs is a little bit different though, because before they rolled this program out, they actually did another pilot where they had DPW actually picking up some of it and transporting it to, I believe, Needham. They were able to get a partnership with Transfer Site in Needham for services. And then after that, they rolled out a program similar to ours. But I think it was a little bit different just because, like I said, they had that before. But yeah, looking at their numbers, they over 1,000 pretty fast. Marlborough, they just released their program maybe about a month ago. And I'd have to follow up with them to see how their numbers have grown. But I can follow up specifically with Marlborough and, get some data on that. So I can send emails to everyone in, the group on that. That's a good question. And I see that Margie from the Sustainability Committee actually gave clarification on why Black Earth doesn't accept yard waste. It's because it might not be chemical free. So I guess that makes sense. If people are putting a lot of Roundup and pesticides, it could mess up their when they're trying to process all of the waste.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. If there's no other questions from the board, so Frank, I guess it looks like a couple of members want you to go back and just verify this with Sustainability Committee. But otherwise, Michael, I think we don't need to vote on this program, do we?
No, I mean, we've moved forward with it.
Okay, perfect.
I think Rob raised some good points. I just want to make sure that everybody knows this isn't like necessarily the end product. We'll continue to look for, I think something more in line with what I think we were all thinking, including Frank as well, which is more of a townwide solution, sponsored solution, I would say.
Sometimes you got to take those baby steps though. And if there's people willing to pay for it right now and that want it, let's let them at least start doing it until we can figure out a way for the whole community to do it. So, okay, great. Thank you, Frank, very much. Good luck. And I hope people look into it and sign up.
Absolutely. I'm excited to roll this out. Like I said, we have a great outreach document, and I've been working with Ashley Place, who's a communications specialist, to get a game plan of once we're ready to go, just promoting it on the newsletter and social media. And, it'd be great if we could have Black Earth give a webinar on the program as well. So yeah, I'm excited to roll it out. And if anyone has any questions who's listening on this webinar, I can give my email out, and, feel free to send an email to me, and I'm happy to get back to people. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Moving on, thank you to everyone who is here for the Historical Commission appointments. I appreciate your patience. As we always find out, we plan these agendas and then things don't always go quite as well as we scheduled them. So last time at our meeting, we had done introductions of, sorry, I'm looking for something on my screen. There we go. We had done introductions. Everyone who was interested in going for the Historical Commission was able to give a little bit of a introduction. There was a few people who were not able to be here last time or had technical difficulties. So we're going to let them speak if they want to. Rob, did you ever get in touch with the people that you had? You're muted, Rob.
No, they never did respond to my emails and phone calls. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So if you've emailed and responded, okay. So
Yeah.
Remind me who you had, because we'll take them off of our.
Malcolm, John. Well, I don't know if they responded since to Susan or here or not. But
so
one was
Nathaniel John.
That's right. And I think the other one. Let me look at my list here.
And
I was looking
Anthony
for last.
Rabasco.
Yes, which I actually don't see him on the current list unless I missed them.
They're there. They're on the list that Susan gave us in our packet. Susan, did you hear from either of those two gentlemen?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Yeah, I see Anthony there. Yeah, so they didn't
well.
respond to me, so I don't know.
Well, if there's something else in the future, I think we have enough good candidates that we can thank them for submitting, and hopefully they'll be involved in something sooner. So I'm going to start with Liz, because I know she tried last time, and Liz, if you could just give an introduction of why you want to do this and your background.
Sure. So I apologize for last week. So first I was having technical difficulties, and then I got a call from the Weston Public Schools superintendent offering me a job. So I had to take the phone call and then talk to the building principal. And so here I am. So
well, hopefully you got the job. You muted yourself again. You're muted, Liz.
And I've been in Zoom meetings and Google Meets for 2 weeks now. Anywho, so, I know a lot of you, and in my conversation with Joe, on the phone, I've lived here for 35 years. I've seen different aspects of Ashland. I do admit that I'm not cognizant of the historical piece of these buildings that we have in town and the properties, and that was my number one reason for wanting to do this. I've lived here for so long and have not really learned anything about historical Ashland. I'm so involved with the Ashland Day Committee. So even doing that, I see and hear different things about these landmarks, these properties. So, I guess in a nutshell, that's my major reason,
okay,
wanting to learn more, and be part of that historical preservation.
Great.
And so I do have to put a child to bed.
Okay, you don't have to stay.
I'm going to leave. I'm going to say thank you, guys. Thank you to the board, Michael, everyone. I hope to hear from you guys soon.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you again, Liz, and good luck with the new job.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah. Okay, the other person who I see here who was not here on our last one is Tom DeAlmeida. Tom, if you want to unmute and tell us why you'd like to be part of the Historical Commission.
Hey, everybody. How you doing tonight? Good to see you all. Basically, what got me so involved with this is the Hall House. And for you, the people that don't really know what the Hall House is, it's where actually Henry Warren and George Lentros, as an apprentice, just like Thomas Edison and Tesla, worked together. Well, that's where they created the electric clock, which has everything to do with today, all our lives. And I was disappointed to hear that the Hall House was going to come down, and it was going to come down. So I reached out to a few people on the board here, and I was very disappointed to hear that. And so I fought for what I thought was right for the town of Ashland, for what is right for historians, for what is right for the past and the future. And from what I understand, Michael Herbert has basically said, hey, Tom, we convinced him, the buyer, he's not going to tear it down. And that really meant the world to me. And seeing that it was going to be torn down, it was unacceptable for the town to sell it for $10,000 and then the realtor to basically tear down the home and build an $850,000 home. I know it's going to be connected to the era and look like the era on the outside, but the inside it's going to be modern. But we can't have this, you guys. We need to preserve history in here. And as every year goes by, we're losing too much. We're losing the past and not thinking about what's best for the future. What's best for people knowing what we need here in town. And we, Ashland, really is an amazing place, and it's an amazing place where that the history that we have is amazing itself. You know, it just I'm just glad that Michael convinced the new buyer, hi Mike G, that the new buyer that, you know, he's decided to not tear down the home, which is a great news to me anyways. I don't know about everybody, but it is to me, being an electrician, being part of Ashland my entire life. And if you know me, you know I love this town. You know I'll do anything for this town. And I'm pretty sure most of you, not all of you know me, but that's what I wanted to do. And that's why I was so stubborn. And I know people don't like that, some of you, but that was what's best for Ashland. And that's what got me involved, where I wanted to preserve history and where I know the history of Ashland in many places, or many things, I should say. I need to be part of this, and I want to be part of this. And I don't want a 1 year, I don't want a 2 year, I want a 3 year, because I think it's best for the town.
Okay, good. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay. So was there anyone else? There's someone on a phone call. I don't know if that's someone who didn't get to speak last time. The person who's on the phone call ending in 4536. Do we know who that is? I'm going to unmute them. I'm trying to unmute them. It's not working. Jen, can you try and unmute 453, that phone number ending in 4536? I just want to make sure it's not someone who didn't get to speak last time who wants to speak.
You can't do it. They won't,
Unmute.
won't
Okay. So who's ever on 508-881-4536, unless that's Connor, I don't think so. If you are here to talk about Historical Commission, now's your chance. Okay, so this is the process that we're going to do. This has to be a public vote. So select board members, I'm going to ask each of you to say your 7 choices. And we have a tally sheet, and I've created my own tally sheet. And I'm going to give everyone who you say, they're going to get 1 point. And whoever the 7 people who have the most, potentially 5 votes, 4 votes, or 3 votes, will be on the board. And then we'll determine who is going to have the 3-year term, the 2-year term, and the 1-year term. Does that make sense? Board, you're all muted. So, and who would,
does
to me.
Okay, who would like to go first?
I have a quick question for you. Was
Sure.
there, if I remember correctly, maybe I'm confusing things. Was there a student that applied for this position?
Yes, so these are the people that I have pulled out based on information. So Kenneth Bowker never got back to us. Nathaniel John, I've pulled out because he hasn't gotten back to us. Hold on, just comparing my notes. Arjun Preetha was a student, so very enthusiastic based on his conversation with Brandy, but I don't think it's a good fit. And then Anthony Ribasco, we've also taken off.
And
of the
Madam
list.
Chair, if I may add, I did not hear back from Julie Marcus.
Okay, then we will take her off as well. So this is the list that I feel we should be working with. Liz Childress, Karen Coleman, Tom D'Almeida, Kelly Flannery, Jim Hanna, Jim Nielsen, Jenny Parator, Joanna Sorensen, Vijay Subramanian, Deepa Venkat, and Dana Wright.
Yolanda, on Deepa Venkat, wasn't she the person that was appointed to the planning board?
Yep, but she spoke and she said that if she's needed, she would do it. So I'm leaving her name there, and we, I guess, can decide if we want to give her a lot more to do or just let her stay on the planning board.
Still a lot coming up.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to share your screen? Or no?
Sure, I can share my screen where I'm tallying.
One question before we move on.
Sure, Steve.
I don't recall from our last meeting. Did VJ make a presentation?
No, he didn't.
No.
He did not?
No.
I had talked to him though.
And he's still interested, Brandy?
He's still interested. He's also currently serving on the Friends of the Upper Charles Trail and the Ashland Indians Club. So, but he was still interested. Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to say this one more time. The person who's on the phone at 4536, we've tried unmuting you. We believe it's Jimmy Hanna. If it's you, unmute and give us a minute or two why you want to be on. I'm going to give you one more chance while I share my screen so I can do the tally and people can see me do the tally. Screen 3. There we go. And share. Okay. Can we all see that? Yes, no? I'm not seeing.
Yeah.
Can we see this?
I've got it now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I have, like I said, down the left-hand side, I have Liz, Karen, Tom, Kelly, Jim Hanna, Jim Nielsen, Jenny Parator, Joanna Sorensen, Vijay Subramani, Deepa Venkat, and Dana Wright. Who would like to go first? If no one wants to, I will. Shall I go first? Okay. Someone's got to. I'm going to do Liz, Tom, Jim, Dana, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on. 5, 6, and 7. So those are my 7.
So can you repeat those, please?
My candidates are Liz Childress, Karen Coleman, Tom D'Almeida, Jim Hanna. Nope, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jim Hanna, Jim Nelson, Joanne Sorensen, and Dana Wright. I feel it's a good mix of people who have a lot of history, plus some people who are new, who want to learn and support it. Who would like to go next?
Okay, I'll go next.
Okay.
I had Liz, Karen, Tom, Kelly. You keeping track of these?
Hold on, Kelly.
So I had Liz,
Yep.
Karen, Tom, Kelly, Jim Nielsen, Jenny Parator, and Joanna Sorensen. Those are my 7.
Okay, that's your 7. Okay. Who's going next? Rob?
Sure. Yeah, going to Karen Coleman,
Yep.
Tom DeAlmeida,
Okay.
Jim Hanna,
Okay.
Jim Nielsen,
Yep.
Jenny Parator,
Yep.
VJ Sobranian,
Okay.
and Dana Wright.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay.
And just one note, we should probably appoint an associate member, right, before we leave tonight? Or at least 2, maybe?
We could. Let's do this first. Let's pick our main 7 and then we can go from there. Joe or Brandy?
I'll go if you don't mind.
Nope, that's fine.
Is that all right, Brandy? Are you still choosing? Okay. My choice is Liz Childress,
Yep.
Kelly Flannery, Jen Paratori, Joanna Sorensen, Jim Nielsen, Jim Hanna, and Tom DeAlmeida.
Okay. Randy?
Okay. Liz Childress,
Yep.
Karen Coleman,
Yep.
Tom DeAlmeida, Kelly Flannery,
Yep.
Jim Nielsen, Jenny Paratori,
Yep.
And Dana Wright.
Okay. So. One, 2, 3, 5. So we have 2 people with 5 votes. That is Jim Nielsen and Tom DeAlmeida. Do we want to make them the 3-year terms because they got the most votes?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, next we have with 4 votes, Liz Childress, Karen Coleman, and Jenny Parator. Shall we make them all 2 years? Liz asked for 2 years and.
She did.
Okay, make the 3 of them 2 years? Yes or no?
Works for me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Wait a minute, don't we have 3? We have 3 seats that are
3
expiring in 22.
Okay. Okay, so we can make one of the people who got 4 votes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're gonna have to make a decision. Okay.
So we need another 3-year?
Yeah, Steve, you spoke with Karen. Do you know, is she interested in 3 years? And Steve, you also spoke with
I spoke to Jenny.
Karen and
spoke to Karen, and I think Jenny is on the call, so she can probably speak for herself here.
Okay.
I thought I saw her. Maybe not. Maybe she left. But
She's
I think
waving there. She's there.
Jenny.
Jenny, if you want to unmute and let us know if you'd like a 2-year or a 3-year term.
I would love a 3-year.
Okay.
If you'll have me.
We'll make you a 3-year.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay, so we have 5 people now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 so far. So that's, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people that got 3 votes each. So to Joe's point, we could make 2 of them real members with 1-year terms and 2 of them associate members.
we're still going to have to go back and vote.
Yes. I know that. So now we have 4 people. We want to make 2 of them the full members and 2 of them associate members. So the 4 people we're looking at are Kelly Flannery, Jim Hanna, Joanna Sorensen, and Dana Wright. So each person needs to pick 2 who are full members and 2 who are associate members.
Sure.
I'm going to recommend, I'll start. I'm going to recommend Dana Wright as a full member. Joanne Sorensen as a full member. And Jim Hanna and Kelly as associate members.
Okay. All right. I am going to select Kelly for a full membership and Joanna for a full membership, which would leave then Jim and Dana as my alternates.
Okay. So you said Kelly and Joanna as full?
Kelly and Joanna as a full member.
Okay. Okay. Rob? Who would you like as fullest members and who would you like as associate members from the people who got 3 votes?
Needs to unmute himself.
Unmute, Rob. We can't hear you. You're still muted, Rob.
Sorry, it took me a while to find myself in this whole gallery.
Yeah, but you have a microphone down in the corner that you can use to unmute.
Oh, yes, right. I forgot about that. And now I can't see the big screen. Let's see. Okay.
So your choices are Kelly Flannery, Jim Hanna, Joanne Sorensen, and Dana Wright.
I'll go with Jim Hanna and Joanna Sorensen for the regular members and the other 2 as alternates.
Full alternate. You said Jimmy and Joanna? Or
Yes.
Dana?
Jimmy and Joanna. And Dana
As
would
full.
be the other.
Okay. 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 Brandy or Joe?
I'll go.
Right.
Kelly Flannery is full.
Yep.
Joanna, full. And
Okay.
sorry, take that back. Joanna, we have 3 fulls or just 1?
We have 2 fulls that we need to get and 2 associates.
Okay. Did I do Jim Hanna already?
No, you did not.
Okay. I'll make Jim an associate, please.
Okay.
And
Then Dana is an associate.
and Dan would be an associate, right?
Okay. Brandy?
I'm going to go with Kelly for full and Dana for full.
Oh, you guys are making it tough. Okay, and then, okay, so I see Kelly has 3 fulls. Jimmy has 1. Joanna has 3. And Dana has 2. Does that look right? Yes.
That is correct.
Okay. So our full members for 1 year will be Kelly Flannery will be a full member for 1 year. And then Joanne Sorensen will be a full member for 1 year. And Jim Hanna and Dana Wright will be associate members.
Good job.
And I don't think we need to put time limits on the associates, but they'll be there in case, you know, after the 1 year, if those people don't want to continue, or I just think it's good discussion. Plus, at some point, there's been discussion, do we want to make it a 9-member historical commission? So they can start as a 7-member, and then if they feel it's better to have 9, then they can bring forward making those 2 associate members full members.
Question, Yolanda.
Go ahead, Steve.
How do we jumpstart the process?
So I think first is we send out an email, and then I don't know, I'm willing to sit with them to start their process, or Steve or Joe, if you're willing to sit with them, or 2 of us do it to sort of take them through open meeting and, you know, the information that you shared, Steve, to get them training from the historical commission, from the state level.
I mean, we were on the committee, which was defunct because we didn't have enough members.
Yep.
I would have no problem, have Steve and I, you know,
Perfect.
do a Zoom meeting with them all, go over the things that need to be done, and relinquish our responsibilities to them.
That's right. We have to resign, Joe.
Yes, we do.
You don't get to resign yet.
All right. So if we're in agreement, then what we'll do is we can, Yolanda, if you want to put out an email to all of the appointees, and then we'll pick the best day that we can do a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
I'm trying to unshare. I got to find the unshare. Oh, there it is.
I'd just like to congratulate everybody. Oh, that's a great picture.
That was not the unshare button. Sorry.
Nice picture, though.
Thank you.
Great picture.
Grand Canyon 4 years ago. So
Well,
now
congratulations
stop sharing.
to all that are still here with us. I appreciate you all taking on the responsibility as the new members of the Historical Commission. I'm sure that you will do right by us all, and we look forward to talking with you soon. To have that last meeting as a group, and then you guys will be on your own. God bless you.
I just want to say thank you, especially to, well, Yolanda, but you, Joe, and you, Steve, because, you know, we butted heads, but it's all for the good in the end. Okay?
We butted heads. I don't remember butting heads.
Never.
So
Thanks, you guys. It means a lot to me, all of you, especially Michael. Thank you.
I see you doing some rework already.
Some rework?
Well, I'm looking in the background, unless that's is that a room?
Well, yeah, no, that's actually one of your employees in town's house.
Never mind.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, on that note,
All right. Good
thank
night,
you
everybody.
all.
Thank
Good
you so
night.
much.
Thank you all who applied. We really appreciate it. If you did not get selected, know that we appreciate it. We had so many good candidates for this. Apply to volunteer for something else. And as they do projects and as they do things, they're going to need volunteers. So be ready and stay involved and ask questions. And there's always things that we need volunteers for here in town. So thank you again for applying, and thank you for those who got appointed. And okay.
Thank you.
Moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
We can't go anywhere yet, guys.
Okay. We're just starting our meeting now.
We still have a few things to do.
I know.
Next item on the agenda is old new business discussion regarding expansion of no parking area around the Ashland Reservoir. Michael,
guess
is
that would
this
be
you
me.
starting the discussion, or Joe?
Well, I think this is something that the Roadway Traffic Safety Committee has been working on. So I think Joe's probably got the most information on this.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Michael. there has been a lot of discussion with respect to this topic through the Traffic Study Committee, and it's become an issue, especially over the summer months, and even in the fall. And it has to do with adding some streets to the no parking bylaw that we have. And if you're looking for that, that's chapter 293, vehicles and traffic, and it's article 4, section 293-23, parking in prohibited certain streets. That's in our bylaw. And we would like to add the following streets, if you don't mind, Madam Chair. Elliott Street on both sides from Chestnut Street all the way to Prospect Street. Spring Street on both sides from South Street to Aggregate Industries. From South Street to Chestnut to Spring Street. Olive Street, both sides from West Union Street to the Hopkinton Town Line. And we'll also like to put some road signs with respect to Olive Street, especially at the beginning of Olive Street near Route 135. It's kind of narrow there, and over the summer during that hot stretch that we had, the state park was over full with overrun with beachgoers, and they parked not only in the community center, but they parked on Haven Way, they parked on Edgewood Drive, and they also parked on Olive Street, and it made it very difficult for cars to pass. If we were to have a medical emergency on Olive Street at that time, the ambulance would not have been able to get through. So we would like to see no parking signs on those two sides past Haven Way. The other question that I would ask the board to consider is Edgewood Drive. The residents down there are being trampled upon by the folks who park on Edgewood and walk into the park, going through people's lawns and yards to get to the park and not utilizing the gate. They just walk through the woods, go right past. There was a family that called us and explained they were having a cookout, and they saw these people walking right by, right through their backyard, you know, with their picnic baskets, the whole 9 yards to get to the park. And they had parked on the cul-de-sac and they were walking in, and there were 15 to 20 cars at that time. Now, I know the police can't be everywhere. There was nothing posted. What we would like to consider is putting resident parking only sign and making it seasonal, and put the times that are there. Now, this is not unique to that one road. We have that same situation on Pinecrest up off of House Street and Cross Street as well. And those roads are both narrow. So it is a concern. We've received many complaints and many requests from the residents in this area that live in those areas about limiting parking in that area. I know it's been addressed to some degree on Chestnut Street and Elliott Street. At some point, someone had placed large rocks along the side of the road, and come to find out that those rocks were actually placed on town property. So God forbid if there was ever an accident and those rocks were involved, the town would be responsible. So I believe those rocks have since been removed. I know that Doug was gonna have his crew go up there or ask the person of the group that put those rocks there to remove them immediately, because they were actually on town property. So that's the spiel. Try to answer any questions that I can with respect to it, but that's, it's for safety concerns and issues more than anything else, guys.
So hold on, Steve. So for these streets, like you mentioned Cross Street and some of these other streets, that means then if we put up, unless they're truly seasonal, no parking signs, that means that the people who live there can't have their friends over and parking on the street, correct?
Well, we talked about that, and you're right. However, what has been done in the past in other towns that we checked is that a quick phone call to the local PD explaining that they're having some sort of activity or function on the street, and there'll be large, groups of people parking on the side of the road. they will allow that to happen. I know that's done in Natick, and I know that's done in Holliston as well. So
Okay.
there's ways of getting around it if need be. So it's not a burden on the residents that are there, that you know, have residents, you know, have visitors, you know, at their residence.
Okay. I mean, I think it's, you know, we certainly need to look at what's going on at the state park, not just from a parking perspective, but other things, but at least this is a first step.
Agreed.
Steve,
And-
you had
I'm
Steve
sorry.
and then Rob.
So
That's okay.
Good question, Yolanda, too, about the you know, residents and having guests over their house. But you know, Joe, I'm totally supportive of, you know, what you're proposing here. You know, we go through this every year. I think we should make a note on the master calendar to next April, before the season even starts, to be in contact with DCR and about their plans for the park for that next year. That being said, do we know at this point whether all of the parking area within the state park is actually available and being utilized? And I don't know that, but there is a substantial number of parking spaces within the park. If it's not being fully utilized, this is what happens. But you know, totally supportive of this. I think anything that we can do to you know, control at least, you know, our streets, we should be doing.
Steve, to answer your question, in my limited capability of walking through the woods, I've gone up through the dike area, and the back area, there's a parking lot up in the back. It's about maybe 100 yards away from the dike. It's never utilized. It's chained off because it's in such disarray and in need of repairs. It's just repaired. It needs to be fixed for anybody to park there and park there safely.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Joe, because you know, it's a perfect segue into the amount of work that was done in Hopkinton State Park this past spring before the park was officially opened. They repaved virtually the entire parking and roadway of Hopkinton State Park. So, you know, I don't think it's unreasonable for Ashland to expect the same consideration for a park that's very busy.
I mean, I'm sure they have a plan, so I think it would be good for us to reach out to DCR and say, okay, you did Hopkinton last winter. We need you to put Ashland on the plan for this winter to get it up and done. I know, you know, they are supportive if we can get the trail going. DCR is supportive of the trail going over the dike. Yeah.
That's a great thing. I think that's a good thing, Yolanda. We did have a meeting with representatives from DCR in the Hopkinton office area, and these issues were addressed and were raised. And one of the things that we were told was that Ashland doesn't really generate much revenue for them because it's a smaller park. So my response to them was very simple. I said, what you need to do is you need to put the boat landing,
your boat ramp inside the park.
Inside the park. Honestly.
Right. If they move that boat ramp to inside the park, then people would be having to pay to use to get their boats in. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And or have something at the boat ramp that you have to have a permit, a park permit to park there and to access the boat ramp.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That be it as it may. It fell on deaf ears.
Rob, you're muted again, Rob.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I certainly understand the concerns that are being raised. I would ask though that we don't make communications with state officials as individuals unless we're very careful to say it's just their individual opinion. I think we need, like, I don't necessarily share all these opinions about closing off the boat ramp and things like that. I do understand that we have some problems. I guess I'm a little leery about, cutting off people's access to wild places in the state park during the heat of the summer. So I think we also need to I'm sure we all want to approach this with sensitivity and consideration for visitors and allowing them access. And I think you've raised the right point, which is that the state should be looking at improving the parking and getting more people and then increasing the revenue. So I definitely agree with you there. I'm sympathetic about the parking issues in private roads. I think I would just ask that, Joe, that you put it down in a list and we look at it in a map. I don't think we need to do it right tonight, do we? Because the season's pretty much over. But I think that's good to come up with this list and let's look at it on a map and decide what's important to close off. But, you know, I'm sure we're all sympathetic that people are looking for a place to, you know, have fun, and we just want to try to have them do it the right way and, you know, and help visitors to do that and help the state do the right thing here. So anyway, so I appreciate you bringing those issues up.
For me, Rob, one of the things with the boat ramp is they're telling us that the Hopkinton State Park gives them more revenue. Well, yes, that's because to be able to use a boat in the Hopkinton Reservoir, you have to pay to get into the park.
Yeah.
Whereas
no, I understand.
People can just use our boat ramp, you know, the boat ramp at the Ashland State Park without having to pay the fees to enter the state park.
Yeah, well, one thing to keep in mind, well, it's still, we've closed that down a bit. It's relatively small, so I'm not sure there's a significant revenue there. And we have local residents and people that have been using it for years. So I would think.
Have you been by there? There's at least sometimes 20 to 30 cars in the parking lot.
Well, that's okay. That's, yeah. And I understand that could be problematic at times, but it shouldn't impinge on our, you know, we had issues with people parking on the side of the roads, and hopefully we've addressed that. I think we've raised an important point tonight, which is that, and Joe's told us, the parking lot is out of commission. They need to fix that and get people in the park so they're not running around Ashland desperately trying to park somewhere and then getting parking tickets from us. So I think that's the direction to go in.
Yolanda, I'd like to comment on Rob's point. Ashland, some of Ashland residents and a lot of the surrounding town residents that come to that boat landing are acclimated to going there because they don't have to pay. And it's been like that for years.
Sure.
You know, so that doesn't make it right. Plus the fact that's not even our property.
Right.
But we have to deal with the issues that are created because they're not doing what they need to do. So my thought process was to give them a suggestion to help them resolve this issue so that way it becomes their issue and not ours. We put a lot of time and effort. Well, the police department puts a lot of time and effort down here in monitoring and patrolling, you know, that area.
Well, I'm not sure that just telling people to leave there is going to address that anymore. And you know, frankly, I'd prefer not to do. I used to park there myself all the time, and I know a lot of people who have, and they've complained to me about us harassing people and shutting down all the parking. So, you know, I think we just need to be careful about this and, you know, approach it the right way. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, we tell people not to park there, which is not even our property. So.
And you raised a legitimate point about having DCR come in and do enforcement, and hopefully they'll start doing that.
Right. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Yep. Brandy, thoughts on the road signs and closures?
I think we do need to put up more signage. I think the parking situation, we need to handle it, and I think that Joe's suggestions are good. I'd like to see a map as well, just sort of visually, because I'm trying to picture it in my mind, all these closures, and it's hard to kind of visualize it. So I agree with Rob that I think that, you know, having a map would be a good thing to look at. I'm also curious, you know, does you know, the capacity inside the park as people leave for the day, are people just parking along the streets as a convenience, and because they're not, because they're deciding it's easier to just park on the side street and walk in versus trying to find a parking spot inside as well. So
that's it exactly.
Well, and then they don't have to pay either. Right. If you go in through the main gate, you have to pay either you have to have the DCR pass for the season, or you have to pay the daily rate. If you don't park in the park, you can still use it without paying the daily rate or the parking pass.
Do you know if the park was actually at capacity at various times? And created
They've had to
issues.
shut,
I know.
they've had to shut off people.
Yeah, I think July
Yeah,
4th
so
weekend
that's
in
part of it.
particular, when is that really hot weekend, it was at
So that's part
capacity.
of it. That's going to happen again. So that's what they need to expand their capacity and really look at it. So.
Yep.
And the other matter that
Okay.
I discussed with Michael is also the parking at the community center, at the state, to the entry of the state park in Ashland. That one Saturday, that one weekend that I was driving around just to check on things, and it wasn't July 4th weekend. It was after that. There was over 45 cars parked.
It was a really hot weekend.
It was
a
a
really
hot weekend.
weekend,
There's
right?
45 cars parked there, and you could see the people walking down, with their bags or this and that, and their dogs as well. So a lot of dog walkers are there too. So
Don't worry, the president has told us things are going to cool down. The president told us things are cool down. You don't have to worry about hot
well,
summer
if you go
days.
outside right now, it's definitely cooled down, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You're not talking
Yeah.
about the temperature. Okay.
Do we
Sorry,
have,
I had to put that
do
in.
we have any signage? We don't have any signage at the community center regulating parking to the.
No, but it'd be a good way to generate some money. To have an attendant out there and say, yeah, $5.
Actually, I think
Not a bad idea.
DCR was managing that somewhat. There's been a pickup truck parked over at the community center for a while with signs that I think maybe they were putting it out on the weekends during peak times.
Good.
So there was some attempt at management.
That's
It's
good.
probably after your meeting.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
So a question, I mean, we're not acting on this tonight. We're, as we pointed out, the season is essentially over, but it's something that we're going to address for next season.
And it's something that
I think so. I think if Joe can bring forward a map and we can have a plan in place and say, look at when the season is and have the no parking during that season, and then have a meeting, if we can, Michael, put it on a calendar that, in March we meet with DCR and ask them to manage this better. But I also think we should reach out to them now about, what they're going to be doing to improve the state park for next season, because obviously people want to go there and they need to improve their parking.
Right. Michael, a quick question for you is that if the board approves to put these additional streets on, on this bylaw, this would have to go on as an article, right? Warrant article at a town meeting?
If your no parking streets are enumerated in a bylaw, then yeah, you would do that.
Yeah, well, then that's what we'll have to do.
Yeah.
So
Is this no parking on Spring Street in a bylaw?
I don't know Spring Street exactly, Yolanda. I know there are a few streets, including Chestnut Street, that have stuff related to no parking and some limited parking times as well. I'll have to go back through and look at it exactly. But
okay.
Route 135,
Yeah.
all of Route 135. I'm looking. I have the streets right here. All Union Street, from Cherry all the way down to Chestnut Street and Homer Ave, and to Waverly Street. There is no parking at all on Route 135 because it's a major route.
Right, but but some of our other streets aren't in the bylaw, are they?
Yeah, Cherry Street, Central Street, Chestnut Street, the higher end of Cross Street, from House Street to High Street. That's on the other end of Cross. Elliott Street from 126 and Esty Street.
Wait, Elliott Street
So,
from
yeah, there are other-
126 in what direction?
Both directions, north and south.
So then we don't need, so there's already no parking on Elliott Street and Chestnut Street.
150 feet east of the intersection.
Oh, east of 126?
Correct. And it's
Oh,
only
okay.
50 feet. It's not the entire length of.
Not the whole street. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So.
Okay. If there's no other discussion regarding that, let's go into our priority project updates. Rail Transit District. Michael?
thank you. So the Rail Transit District, the only thing we're really talking about is the UGC development, which is known as the Arbella at Ashland. And I had included as part of your backup a draft timeline of the regulatory process that UGC is planning on going through. They are actually going to be meeting, having a technical review meeting with some of the staff tomorrow to talk about very exciting things, but important things like snow storage and stuff of that nature. All that, like I said, all that riveting, important stuff. It's a critical step. At some point very soon, though, we need to have a discussion about the board supporting what's known as a local initiative program application, which is the start of the friendly 40B process. So UGC has delivered a LIP application. It's rather sizable. Attorney Mead is reviewing that, and I've asked her to provide a recommendation to the board whether or not the board should approve it, or whether she has any concerns or any kind of discussion items on it as well. So we should see that in the next.
And that was in our packet, right?
Yes, I know.
The LIP information is in our packet.
Yes. So hopefully, hopefully that will go relatively smoothly. And again, this will be done through a comprehensive permit. Any questions on those?
So, well, just real quick, I am looking at the timeline.
Yeah.
So from here, it looks like there's still a process before they can start construction. So
Yes.
2021 is the LIP project, the process. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's, it is an extensive process. The ZBA hearing, so you've got the LIP application, which is really more regulatory and more of an interaction with the state and DHCD. We want to make sure that we can count all of these units on our affordable housing inventory. Then it goes through the whole zoning board process, and where the zoning board looks at the project as a whole, makes recommendations, make changes. Again, we're a little bit limited in what we can do with 40B projects, just because of the state rules. Say that if you're under a certain percentage of housing that's affordable, you're below a certain percentage, I should say. Developers come in and do these 40B projects, which really alter the density of zoning and what can be put in place on certain parcels. So actually, that's one of the benefits of this project, is that it would provide us immunity to 40B projects in the future of it's 2 years. We get safe harbor for 2 years.
And we're going to get a review from Lisa on, I've read through some of this already, but we're going to get a review from Lisa with recommendations on anything that we may need to do or recommend changes.
Yeah, and I think, you'll see as you go through the application, it represents a lot of what the board has discussed with the applicant already. Right. Through the development agreement process. Again, just because of the way we bought the rail transit district property, the board was in a unique situation to discuss the site plan actually before it even got forward to the ZBA. So again, that was a little bit unique, but so that means you should have no surprises in there.
Right. Okay, good. From what I read, there was nothing yet. Joe, unmute. You're muted. You're still, there you go.
Have all the financial responsibilities been paid up?
No, there are still a couple that are outstanding, Joe, which will be taken care of when the closing happens between the current landowner and UGC. And that was actually articulated in the original development agreement the board had signed with the owner of the rail transit district. So that schedule was laid out then.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? No? We good? Okay. Anything else for the rail transit district, Michael?
Nope.
Okay. Moving on to downtown. It's nice to see some progress on 128 Main.
Yes, I will start off with 128 Main just because I know that there's been some longstanding issues with the building and the developer vis-a-vis what the planning board had authorized and approved. So they've been working pretty hard. I think the planning board has been very generous in terms of their time and their willingness to work with the developer to try to come up with a solution to this problem. Ultimately, I believe the developer is reverting back to basically everything that was originally approved back in September of 2019. I think the only thing that's still outstanding that is really going to be difficult to change is that additional column, just because of the structural support that it provides. But I think, as you've seen, the gray boxes have been removed. I know they've done some work at the first floor retail level. I believe the next step is they're going to change the shingles on the roof.
I believe that they're meeting also on site. The planning board is meeting on site on Friday to review on site with the, I'm not sure if the developer, I think one of the frustrations that's occurring here is that, when the planning board meeting has 128 Main on their agenda, it's only the architect that is there and not the real decision makers. So I think this has kind of been taking much longer than it probably should have. Months and months of literally meetings. And so I think that's been a challenge.
Yeah. And so, in other news downtown, I did speak to BSC Group, our engineer for downtown. I hope to be putting together a meeting with Geosio, who is the contractor, the winning bidder for the project. And again, the hope is to get the work started, especially the undergrounding work, this fall, and to get that completed, or a majority of that completed. So looking forward to, again, getting that started. It'll be nice. It'll be painful, but it'll be nice.
Good. Anything else in downtown?
No, unless you have some questions. Nothing. Okay.
No.
I'll move on to the public safety building. So the project went before the planning board as a first step of site plan review. I think that was a good meeting. Jen or Joe or Steve could probably provide a little bit more color to that if necessary. Our next step is the notice of intent through the Conservation Commission. Unfortunately, we still have not received the landowner's permission to file that notice of intent. We do hope to get that clarified very soon, so we can go through that. Obviously, it's a very challenging site. We've known it's a very challenging site. There are some wetland impacts, and so we're eager to really start to discuss with the Conservation Commission what those are, and hopefully come to an agreement pretty quickly as to what the impacts are, and then also look at what the mitigation would be associated with that. So it's an important part of the process, and it's something that's necessary as we move forward. So
I thought the planning board meeting went very well. I think our architects did a really good job of presenting, and I thought the planning board were very receptive, had good questions.
Yeah. Jen, did you have anything you wanted to add? Because you've been really kind of point on this project.
No, I think you covered Concom. We're going to design review as part of the site plan review process because it's in the Wildwood Mixed District. We have to go in front of design review. So we'll be presenting that tomorrow evening. And then I think
well, no, I was going to use part of that as my board report, but now that you brought it up, I'd be more than happy to just say that I thought the presentation went well. HKT did a great job with their presentation, and I think the planning board, asked pertinent questions, and they got the answers that they were looking for. And I think overall, that hopefully, we've got their backing, and hopefully we'll get their approval when it comes time for it.
Excellent. Unless there are any other questions, I'll move forward to the Warren District and the
But
balance.
Michael, just one more thing, sorry. We were also talking as a committee to have at least one more forum. We were hoping for September, but it's sort of, we're charging ahead here. It's like the fastest month ever. So maybe, at the very end of September or early October, and then we were hoping to have a couple more between October and town meeting. So we'll definitely share that once we have a date that we've chosen.
Oh, you guys took all my information from my board report, so that's good.
Hey, there you go. Okay. So moving on to the Warren District in Valentine property. So I'll start with Valentine. We had a pretty good meeting with the committee. We're talking about how Beth and Jen and myself, to a certain extent, can help move things forward and help the committee. And so we've talked about, some of the options that we have that we could help with. I believe the Valentine Committee's on board with that. They took a vote to support that. Just want to give everybody try to give you a synopsis of what we're trying to do. And what we have to do is, we'd be looking at doing an RFP or request for, some ideas or proposals of what people would like to do for the Valentine property, utilizing established criteria that the committee has come up with to help guide, a selection process. I'm not sure we'll get any proposals. It's a big project. It's an expensive project, even for the private sector. So it'll be interesting to see that. But also concurrently, we have to start working on a zoning change as well. And, that's going to be necessary no matter who owns it, even if it's the town, just because the zoning that is allowed there is residential. So what we're doing is we're actually looking at, and we're working with Pete and Emma on this, an overlay district. I think many of you are familiar with an overlay district, which, you have the underlying zoning, and then you can apply an overlay zoning option on top of that, that would allow for certain uses that, again, the Valentine Committee could help establish. For those that are concerned, because it was raised at the committee, we would do something similar that we're doing with 433 Chestnut Street with the Valentine property. Once they would be restored, we'd put a historical restriction on those. Those things run with the land, so it doesn't matter, the subsequent owners in the chain of title. That deed restriction runs with it. So, obviously we spend a lot of money on it. We're spending a lot of time and energy on, getting something nice there. And so we want to make sure that we protect that investment. So there's that.
It's nice to hear that the committee is working with you guys and that things are, moving forward. I mean, I know there's been so many good ideas for that property. If we can actually make something happen, it'd be great.
Yeah, just like with any project, there's no shortage of ideas. It's just when you need people to step up and actually, put the money in and actually make that investment, all of a sudden those ideas are not so good anymore. But again, hopefully
we need some wealthy entrepreneurs who are willing to invest in some of our buildings here in Ashland to move some of these projects forward.
Deep pockets. Michael,
there you go.
I have a question for you, Mike. Now that we have a full roster on a historical commission group, should they be getting involved or sitting in down discussion with the folks from regarding the Valentine property to do, similar, to get involved in this process with them?
I don't think so, Joe. I mean, if we were talking about demoing the property or something like that, there would certainly, be, I think, a role that the historical commission would need to play.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think one committee is,
plenty.
Yeah, more than enough, right?
Yeah.
The only reason why I asked that, and again, I'm thinking out of the box, similar to what Holliston did with their historical commission. and what they did with the bond on 126 and how they utilize that space. And I don't know if that's going to be the venue or an idea or suggestion that's going to be utilized, the Valentine property, or a combination of different, different themes for that. But I would think that bond would be a great location to do something similar to that with surrounding, with the surrounding land around it, with a farm use or whatever,
Yeah, we agree. I think, Joe, you bring up a good point. I mean, there's a really important distinction between a historical commission, which is a town entity, and a historical society, which in Holliston actually runs the Holliston Historical Society barn and the functions there. We have the Ashland Historical Society as well, and they have Ocean House. The Historical Society, we actually brought them in as part of the Valentine Committee process when we were looking at different models. We've had them in and they were very, very generous with their time and their knowledge and letting us know exactly how they put things together, how they keep things running. And it was very, very interesting. I think they had the benefit of having this kind of vision, decades ago when things were a little bit cheaper. But they certainly gave us a lot of food for thought. And, we've looked at other models, the Josiah Smith Tavern in Weston, Natick Community Organic Farm. There were a couple of others that really I just have to, give a shout out to all of them because they've been very generous with their time and their knowledge and expertise.
Medway did a nice job too with their.
Medway was the other one. Yes.
Medway, yeah. Yep. Okay. If nothing else.
Yeah, the Warren Barn. Yeah, just the Warren Barn. We're still on schedule to go out to bid this fall. And we're still looking at a closing date of October for 433 Chestnut Street.
Cool. Okay. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving on, town manager report.
Yeah, I know we've got a few things on here. I really think the only thing that's really pressing is our COVID update. So there's a couple of things we want to talk about. First of all is the start of school. Obviously school has started in Ashland. I think I can't really thank enough the school administrators, the teachers, the school committee, and the parents and the kids for all of their patience and flexibility going through this process. Which again, we don't have a script for this. There's no playbook, and so they've really worked hard to come up with a solution that, again, it's not going to make everybody happy, but hopefully it will solve the problems. Speaking of solving problems, I'd really like to give some recognition to Kelly Rund and our recreation program. I think everybody knows Kelly, and she runs a great program, but she's actually starting to run a program that can help. Jen, why don't you elaborate a little bit more on it, because I'll get it wrong.
Sure. So Kelly's been working with community center staff and with Ed on sort of the COVID regulations, and she's going to be running a remote enrichment program. It was actually just approved by the state yesterday evening, and so she's going to be working to roll that out very quickly. And so basically, it's a program in which families will be able to have their children come to the community center in small pods, and we can provide, we're hiring additional staff to provide some remote learning support for those families who are struggling with the balance with their children being home for remote learning. And so she has been working really hard in a really truncated sort of time period. So it's a nice program, I think, that will help some of our working families. It's obviously, we are limited in capacity, so there's only so many families that will be able to participate, but it's definitely something that I'm proud of her for putting that together so quickly.
Yeah, it's really one of the, I think, the only in the state that's running. Speaking of only, leaders in the state, how many of you have been to the library, or been into the library, or taken part of their curbside programs? Have, Brandy, Steve, I would hope you would have.
curbside stuff. So.
Yeah, it's, Paul and I were talking today and just kind of what
Rent their electronic books so I don't have to go get any.
it's the wave of the future. I'm dying trying not to, but it is the way of the future. Paula, I don't think people realize that the level of service that Paula in the library provides, especially compared to a lot of our surrounding communities. A lot of our surrounding communities still aren't even open.
Nope.
And Paula has done a great job of managing her building, managing her staff, managing her budget in a way that gives Ashland residents and actually residents from other communities access to just really what should be a staple in communities, which is the public libraries. And so, she's one of those that kind of goes under the radar a lot of times. So I really want to, give her some recognition about that. And actually, I did have one more thing that's not COVID related. I wanted to just talk briefly about the budget, the FY21 budget. Really specifically, I wanted to talk about capital. So Jen and Brittany and I met yesterday, and we're looking at a lot of our capital projects from previous years. A lot of them, especially over the last year, have not been able to get started just because of COVID, and that's been taking up and sucking up a lot of staff time. It was even a problem before COVID hit, and I think I had talked to you about that. How it's hard to get some of these projects completed just for lack of staff. So what we will look at doing is we're going to look at redirecting some of our capital money that has been allocated to projects that won't be completed to getting projects that we have already started. Rob, you'll be very happy to know, very happy that the trail is one of those things. I'm making sure we can get Trolley Brook,
right,
that section done.
Yeah, I think people love that section. So.
It'll be a real feather in the cap. We are looking at the Warren Barn as well, making sure that we can get the Warren Barn done, because we know that the Warren District funds are not going to be enough for that, and a couple of other big projects. But one thing that we're very conscious of is we do capital projects, the pay-as-you-go capital projects. We do them under one number, and we put a list of those projects underneath, so we have some flexibility. If one comes in under and another comes over, we can actually do those projects without any kind of hiccup. But there's a level of trust that's involved in that we have to that we've cultivated and that we have to keep intact. So if there's a project on there that really hasn't been through that public process, we'll probably have a discussion and maybe even a vote necessary at town meetings with that.
Yeah, I would also say, as you're looking at that now, let's bring it forward to our next select board meeting, and so that there is some public discussion and review of what changes are being made. I mean, certainly, I appreciate you guys are looking at that and how we do the budget. So it's not like, okay, we have to vote because there's $10,000 extra from this project. We then, are going to vote to move it to that project. But I still think we need to have that public discussion of what's being moved to where and why, and what we're not going to do, so that we can finish these other things. I think it's a good plan, but I want us to make sure that there's public discussion, not just amongst your staff, but amongst us as select board members. We understand it, and so that the public understands it, and it's not just showing up at town meeting to take a vote.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I was clear that we would be, we wouldn't just show it up at town meeting and say,
I mean, I didn't think you'd just show up at town meeting, but it sounded like you were making some decisions already. And it's just, as you have, I think it's more, if you have recommendations for changes to make, that should be discussed as you then make the process go forward.
Well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Or are you,
I'm still responsible for the capital budget, but obviously I like to have the select board put into that. And these are projects that you've already discussed and approved, so they shouldn't be, you shouldn't be strangers to them. So hopefully Hopefully you won't be.
No, not that we're strangers to them, but if there's things that are, then you're not going to do, right? That has also been discussed so that you
Right.
can finish something else. I think that it makes sense. I just wanted to make sure that there's at least a review of it in public at a meeting like this. That's all.
Agreed.
Okay.
Probably won't be at the next meeting though, Yolanda.
That's fine.
Yeah. We'll probably be more like, I'd say probably the last meeting in October.
Okay. Okay.
And so really that's about it.
Okay. No other updates?
That's it.
Okay. That means we're at board reports. Let's see. What, Joe's making faces at me for some reason. Okay. Let's go backwards. Rob, board report.
Sure. Just a couple quick items. One is, did we ever get a response to that beautiful letter to the Attorney General we sent? Did we get anything?
I haven't received anything. Susan,
Wow.
have you received anything?
About the, I'll call the office and say, what? I mean, come on, really? You didn't even respond? I mean, that's wild, but.
Sorry, no, I did not receive anything.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's, all right. And the only other, I just wanted to get a little political for a moment. I think we're all aware that that we're really approaching an historic election. And one thing I think, this is kind of non-political part, but I think we did a very good job in the primary. I think we and I think Michael and Tara and the rest are well aware of this, that we've got probably some major challenges going on for the final election in November. And, I hope we keep focused on that. And I'm sure the board is supportive of any measures we may need to take to make sure we're able to handle the November vote here. So Michael, I would just suggest that if you see any issues that you think we could be helpful with, to bring it up to us in terms of, and I think things worked well. I'm sure you've got a plan coming up, I think it's very important. I just wanted to pivot to the kind of the national situation, and I just, the people out there consider, I think it's very important that we elect Joe Biden as president and that we also switch the Senate over. I'm speaking as a Democrat, but also I think a concerned citizen. I think these are unprecedented times. And I think if you feel the way I do, I would urge you to get involved. In the involvement, go to ashlanddems@gmail.com. That's our local Ashland Democratic Town Committee. And we're doing phone banking. We're writing postcards. The focus is on other states, frankly, border states that are up in the air. We all know we've talked, most of us are aware of it, but if you're sitting there wondering, oh, there's nothing I can do, I just have to wait and see what happens. And if you're concerned, then go to ashlanddems@gmail.com. Say you want to get involved, and we're doing a bunch of things that we can do and still be, safe. We're not going out knocking on doors, but we're writing postcards, we're calling people, and I would urge you to get involved if you're concerned. So I just wanted to put that. This is a time to get involved. Many states are starting to vote already, so time is really short in terms of influencing the national election. So I don't usually get this political, but I think these are really urgent and unusual times. So thank you for that. So, and that's my board report.
Okay, Steve?
Good. Hey, thanks, Rob, for those comments. And I'm going to volunteer Bonnie on behalf of our household.
Yeah, there you go.
So just a few things. Number one, it looks like, and Susan, I don't know if you've gotten any feedback regarding the post office, but they did weed whack the grass. So it does actually look just a tad better than it did. So something worked somewhere. I don't know who. I don't know, Susan, if you had any contact, but if you did.
I did not have any contact. I did appreciate you sending along the pictures because I don't necessarily drive by that way.
Yeah.
So somebody heard us. They just didn't respond to us.
Well, that's okay. So, hopefully we're back in the queue. And, to connect it to the election, certainly the importance of the post office this year is even more pronounced than it's been for a long time. So So thank you, whoever cut the grass. A couple of Lions related activities. There's a Lions yard sale this Saturday. It's being held at 99 Pleasant Street, Saturday the 19th. Everybody, the Lions are going to be practice all the protocols, but it is at 99 Pleasant Street, Saturday the 19th. Another related Lions request, and I didn't want to necessarily need to put this as an agenda item, but there is a tree. There are two trees over by diagonally across from Erica's that the Lions planted a number of years ago. One of them is dead. One of them has died, and they want to replace it. And so I don't know if we need to officially take a vote on this, but I wouldn't think we'd have any problem with the Lions replacing a tree that they had already donated to the town. Do I hear any kind of opposition to that?
I mean, if they're looking to replace it, no, I don't see anything. I would just say maybe have them check with DPW and.
We've already done that.
Oh, yeah, then that's fine.
Anybody else
For me,
have
anyway.
a concern about replacing a tree? Okay, hearing none, I'll advise them to go and replace the tree.
Okay.
All right. So this past Monday, the community center started a lunch program, a drive-through lunch program, and I participated in it. Everybody, of course, is masked and socially distanced, but they had about 35 seniors that came through, drove, collected a lunch, prepared, and drove off, and they're going to continue it. I think Jen is they're going to continue it on a Monday, every Monday basis.
They are.
And I know it's being subsidized by the Friends of the Council on Aging, but it might be something that the board might want to contribute to at some point, is maybe subsidize one of the lunches at some point in time. And when I get a little bit more information from Joanne Duffy, I'll bring it back to the board, and if we see fit to contribute to it. So that being said, I had a question asked of me, and maybe Michael and Jen, you're already working on this, but some of the people were asking about a town mask. The school department has a mask. Why doesn't the town have a mask with the town seal on it? I said, I don't know. I said, I'll ask the question. And
I mean, we do not have one. Actually, it's a great opportunity. The class of 2021 is selling Ashland masks as part of their fundraiser for their class.
Okay.
So I'd encourage everybody to go purchase one of those as well.
Are they have a town? I haven't seen them. The town seal is on it?
They don't have the seal, but they're clearly Ashland.
Okay. All right.
Probably a clocker on it or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I believe they're $10. But again, it's to support the class of 21.
Okay.
That's an idea. I'll pass that on to my daughter, a town mask. Maybe she can get a seal somewhere.
There you go.
That's right.
Yeah, she's still selling them. The big thing is little cat ear savers. So anyway.
No, they're nice.
Sorry to interrupt.
So last thing on my my list is the virtual Dragonfly Festival took place last weekend. I have no idea how many people watched it. I think folks watched it on intermittent basis. It was 3 days, an hour and a half of 3 days. Yolanda did a really nice introduction to day 3, the Saturday evening. So thank you for that.
You're
I think
welcome.
I see Deb Griffin is on the call. Deb did a really great presentation of her craft, her pottery. It was really well done. We had a really great collection of musicians, most of them from Ashland, but all of them from the Metro West area. And it really came together very, very well, thanks to a lot of work by Connor and Barbara at WACA-TV. And I believe they're going to be replaying them over the weekend and possibly We'll be posting them on our website as well, our Arts Ashland Dragonfly website. So that's my tune tonight.
Okay, excuse me. Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick items. Public safety building meeting, it was great. Steve and I have had the opportunity and privilege to do some work finally. We received 106 subcontractors that are looking to bid out, sub work. And we had 10 general contractors who applied for bidding the job itself. So hopefully this will be to our advantage as a town advantage. Hopefully the bids will come in a little bit lower than we were anticipating to help ease the burden to the taxpayers for this project. I'm keeping my fingers crossed and toes crossed for that to happen. The other thing I would like to pick up is that the Ashland Housing Trust, Affordable Housing Trust, has a committee of 5. We currently have a vacancy since Dan resigned from his position. So with the assistance of Deb Griffin, she's drafting a letter to go out to the town's website. And we're looking for, people who are interested in getting involved as part of our committee. What we're looking for and what we're hoping to get are people who are currently in an affordable unit or affordable house. So because they're the ones that, are experiencing the ups and downs of living in one of these units, and hopefully their livelihood would be helpful in our ways of doing things that we have to do to continue doing the trust work. She's going to be sending a letter out, like I said, and I appreciate all her efforts in getting it done. So we meet once a month, and usually on a Thursday. The meetings will start at 3 o'clock to 5. Those are the new start and finish times. And I appreciate Deb's effort on this. And we're looking forward to getting multiple participants to fill in talent bank forms so we can sit down and add to our membership. And I think that's just about everything that I have. Yeah, that's it. We're good. Thank you.
Good. Brandy?
I will be super quick. I just wanted to let you guys know that we are meeting next Friday, the group of us that are meeting about town meeting. So hopefully I will have some good updates for you guys for our next board meeting in October. And then the only other thing I just was, there's a little bit of a theme with the elections. I just wanted to remind people that are looking to vote by mail that we should have all received an application for a mail-in ballot. And if you just decide that you want to vote by mail, I'd suggest returning that. The cutoff date is October 20th, but I'd recommend folks send in that application so you can receive your mail-in ballot in plenty of time for the election. So that is all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Just have a couple things. Metro West Conference for Women is happening virtually tomorrow. Ticket sales ended today, but that's happening tomorrow. I'm participating in that. Then the Metro West Regional Collaborative, our next meeting via Zoom is on September 24th at 8 a.m. I'm going to be bringing forward a garden club request for funds. They have a detailed list of everything they've done. And even though our grant program is closed, we did say that if there's an organization that we typically give funds to that is looking for some funds. So I will have that as part of our next agenda for you guys to review and see. I think it might be a good thing. They do so much good stuff and they beautify town. So, but I'll bring that forward to the next board. It'll be on our next agenda to review. And then, just to not to counter everything Rob said, but just for everybody who wants to get involved, it's important that everybody vote in the way that they think is right. And, if we're gonna, I think it's important that we look at what you think is important and you vote the way you want to. In regards to mail-in ballots, definitely get them in, but also feel comfortable coming and voting on November 3rd, if that's what you want to do. And or early voting is also going to be available as of the last 2 weeks of October. So there's all kinds of ways to vote. So everyone should be able to get their voice heard as long as they're registered to vote. And if there is nothing else, our next meeting is scheduled for the first Wednesday in October, which I believe is October 7th. Yes. So we will go to 3 weeks because it's a five-week month. So our next scheduled meeting will be October 7th. And I'm sure we'll all be busy doing stuff until then.
I have a tear in my eye rolling down.
Because you won't see us for so long, Joe?
Well, no.
I think we can handle that.
I can, but this coming Saturday would have been our 35th Ashland Day.
I know.
And,
Yes.
We had to cancel it. And it really, up to this point, we would have been like bees running here, there, and everywhere.
Right.
It's like, wow, the sword of Damocles is not over my head. I don't have to carry all the burden. And it's bittersweet, to be very honest.
It is bittersweet to not have it.
You know?
Yeah. Considering, I didn't realize it was going to be the 35th.
Yeah, I will tell you, Joe, I feel, very much like you do with the activities that we're both involved in, but I'm really enjoying the year off from all the heavy lifting, really, whether it's, the farmer's market or the Dragonfly Festival. It's a lot of physical work, as you know. So I'm enjoying this year, actually.
As I am as well.
I have to say, I went to the market. I mean, I don't go every Saturday, but I certainly, pick something up every once in a while. And I'm looking forward to hopefully being able to have the real farmers market back next year with the music and the activity and the socializing. And I don't know about you guys, but that's like one of the best places in the summer to go and talk to people.
Yep.
Yeah, so. We all miss it. Obviously, we all miss it. And, we might want to talk about the concept of having a live meeting at some point.
Yeah, I think we have to look at that, and then with that, a remote participation bylaw as to what we want to do.
Would you make a note and put the remote participation on the next agenda, please, so we can discuss it and
that's a good idea
and vote on it, because there's going to be some of us that may not want to participate in a remote live meeting, so we need to accommodate that. Rob?
Yeah.
Well, it's not only remote participation for us, but for
everybody,
for the public.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be thought about, and how do we technically handle it all? So
Very true.
a lot to think about.
Very true.
Okay.
And we're still selling corn.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
Yeah, we're still selling corn. So
okay.
If you enjoy it, continue. Huh?
Motion to adjourn.
Great.
Second.
And I heard a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand and wave.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Those of you who hung out, those of you who watched and participated, we really appreciate it. Have a great night. We will see you on October 7th.
God bless those who stayed for the entire meeting. Thank you, Diane.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.